City Council. Oh, we'll start over. Good evening. We'll call the Leavenworth City Council meeting to order for December 17th. And we'll do a roll call.
Sharon Waters.
Zeke Reister.
Jane Fair.
Travis McMaster. Mike Bedard.
And I'm Ann Hesberg, Mayor Pro Tem this evening. First order of business, our discussion of the Tumwater Cross. As a council, we'll discuss where and when we would like to hold that meeting with the community. I'll open the floor to the council. And maybe suggest we start with the West Hall.
Yeah.
Depending upon how people's communication has been with community members over the last couple of months while this has kind of been buzzing around town. Do we think that that would be an appropriate location? Too big? We could also do it here in the chambers if we think it'll be a smaller group.
I think it'll
Let me
be a
know what you
large
guys think.
I think it'll be a large group.
Kind of wonder if it's being blown out of proportion, I would say, but that doesn't mean that we don't need to accommodate that. But I feel like the discussion should be about whether we just ask the county to follow the rules. That's it. It's not about anything else as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know that we need a special meeting for that. It just could be pretty quick, but I know there's gonna be a lot of commentary. I just don't necessarily want to kind of set the tone that we are gonna have this big grand debate and make it into something that it shouldn't be. Personally, I just think we should let county know that we would like them to follow their own rules and procedures in regards to pretty much anything that around our vicinity.
I agree.
Yeah, I think I can certainly see the value in not overblowing the situation. It's just and I agree totally that this is really a discussion of existing code and what's been established to follow and identify things for what they are. So it's just, where do we hold this? It's kind of more or less the more important thing, because I do really feel it needs to be held, that's for sure. But it's like, where and yeah.
Do you think the fest hall's too big? Do you, would like make it a fire hall or?
Yeah, let's see. You know, if we can get the fire hall, which we could if we just pick the right dates. I think that might be a better venue, fire hall.
We have more chairs for the city hall, right?
Oh, we got lots of chairs.
Oh, yeah, we have
we do have more.
I feel like we might be able to accommodate more people here
Yeah.
than at that fire hall.
Yeah,
Because of the way the table.
Because of the way the tables and their big orange chairs are set up, you can only fit like 3 people per table and it takes up a lot of space in there. So we might actually get more accommodation here if we just bring some more chairs in. And then it's not a huge venue like the festival.
Right.
That's where you guys are leaning.
because actually we could put in more chairs, right, if we needed.
Yeah, you can bring more chairs.
I mean, you have all the space here, so. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's the way to go, is council chambers, that if we can, I mean, like, it's only gonna be as big as we can hold, and I don't think we need to overdo it. And so that'd be my vote, council chambers.
Travis?
What's the goal of this community night?
Community discussion about the Tumwater Cross.
And what is the goal? What are we trying to achieve with having?
To have a conversation with the community to gauge the community and how they would like us to respond or whether or not to respond at all.
It's about the draft resolution that was discussed during study session last Tuesday.
Yeah.
I didn't hear things as a response from the community. I thought it was us.
They do want
Making a
us
decision.
to
And if we
respond to their ask.
open it up or make it sound like Mike said, make it sound like this is a big thing where everybody's gonna get in line and say what they want to say. If that's not what we're doing, then we need to make that clear.
Mhm. If we choose to have this meeting, I think it would be really important for us to set the tone at the beginning of the meeting. To describe exactly what our goal of that meeting is with the community and what the outcome is that we expect.
It's kind of what I was saying too, the goal of it. I think that's easier said than done. And I think we saw that with the condo discussion.
Sure.
It got away from, it got away from Lilith a little bit. And it was like, it didn't seem like it was productive and it got really negative, and it was overwhelmingly not valuable, I don't think. So that's why I asked what the goal is. I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, we were elected, hired to represent the community. I think we're here to listen, I guess is what we want to do to the community, to the to people that live in the UGA, that will see it, that may or may not live in Leavenworth. We want to listen to everybody. And again, I feel like I still yield to that's a county discussion. I mean, that's a county.
Well, are people going to assume that whatever the community at the majority of the community say that is that going to be our decision? Or,
That's the point, right?
yeah, so.
We
I
were
think
elected
that
to make
we
these
op-
decisions
yeah.
and listen, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you come to something and you're assuming that what you say is gonna make a difference.
But
And
if 90% of the people that show up are against it, but there's actually more than a larger percentage that didn't make it out that night, we're discounting their voice, so we're just listening to the people that showed up. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
yeah,
Not doing a roll call and, like counting votes from the citizens. It's just a chance for them to voice their concerns.
did
My
we,
concern is that I don't want the meeting to turn into the symbol or belief systems or anything like that, because that's not what we're about. And I'm trying to think of what the public commentary, they should be allowed, and they are allowed to voice their concerns, but what is that going to turn into? It should just be about like whether we want our neighbors to play fairly. Is I think, and I don't know how many people are going to get up and talk to that effect. I think it could get really emotional.
Right.
And no doubt we'll get emotional. I think there's no way to avoid some of that anyway. It's just that's how the issue is.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it's like something you walk past and don't deal with as best you can. It's an issue in the community. I think it's our elected responsibility is to have a form on it and also identify what we're deciding. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's more folks for or against. What we're deciding is, the way I read this is that county has kind of changed its interpretation of how they're reading this code. And we're making a decision if we want to proceed further with the county and make them aware of what they initially, how this would be handled and how it's now being interpreted. So it's kind of our job. We've done that before on, not when we worked with the Land Across and Praise, and they decided to make that a development, multi-housing development. And we took it to, under the Growth Management Act. They were making moves that weren't even in line with what that was. And so we ended up going to court, or at least went to whatever the court was that decided that.
We took them to the growth.
Yeah.
management hearings.
yeah.
So it's like, sometimes in those kind of situations, I think they can still ignore us, but I think they need to hear from us because it has had an impact on our community, as did that development. And so I think we make that clear to the community, what we are talking about, very clear, several points, and we're still gonna have the emotional part, but you sort of tell them what you're gonna do, you tell them what you're doing, and you tell them you told them, and then you just move on.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, we already decided that we did want to proceed with this.
Yeah.
Sounds like we want to meet here at City Hall. I think it's important for us to discuss ahead of time what our goal in that meeting is, so I'm glad we're having that dialogue. I'm aligned with the messaging that Mike suggested. I don't really support the proposed resolution that was brought to us by that group. I think that there is some emotional clauses in that resolution, and I also don't think that it is focused on what should be our priority as a city council. And that's to Mike's point, in that this needs to be us reaching out to Chelan County if we choose to move forward with a resolution about them specifically adhering to their adopted code
Right.
and treating everybody fair and equitably, and not creating a way for someone to bypass their regulations. Everybody needs to be, the code needs to be applied equally to
Equal.
everyone in the same way, right? And I think from that standpoint, we could have a really good conversation. But we need to keep the emotional pieces about how we feel about whatever the symbolism is associated with what's being constructed out of that conversation, because that's not where we should have an opinion.
Right. I agree.
Mine is that it's on private property, it's in the county, and they should make the decision. Where I am with it.
The property owner? Or the county?
What's going on is something that is outside the city limits, it's on private property,
Mhm.
and it's the county's issue. County's deal, not ours.
It is, but we reach out to the county about all sorts of things, particularly development in our urban growth area, because we don't have jurisdiction there, but we get to apply our regulations and they have to implement them. So we talk to the county about development in the county all the time.
Has the county invited us to do something or said anything to mayor or anybody?
No, this is them just choosing to implement their code differently than they have historically.
Okay, so the county's not inviting us in to. So I say.
Nor did they invite us either, Sharon, on those issues with the land use. They didn't invite us for that either.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I think we should stay out
I get that.
and let them settle their own business in their own county and you know what they're there for.
Yeah.
All right, so when would you like to hold this meeting? Sometime in January,
thinking more that-
February?
But somewhere in February, not in January.
When's our next quarterly engagement night?
February 4th is community engagement. Day.
February 4th.
Does the county have a timeline now on this where they're supposed to make the
We
decision
have to do
by?
a geological survey. We got a little bit of time.
We got lots-
We have
we've got-
time on
yeah,
this because the property owner at our last meeting said that they have to provide some studies that they can't do during the winter time because they have to be able to get access up to the property and they're snowed
That's
in right now.
Yes,
So
we did.
we've got a little time into the spring.
I mean, we could even wait past February for that matter, but I guess it doesn't matter what they do with the geodesic stuff. It's like that we're dealing with the code thing, so.
Maybe like end of February, like the fourth week when it's usually kind of quiet after the week after our second meeting sort of thing, maybe. Look around that timeline where it's a little bit slower for us with meetings and that sort of thing.
Either one, I think, yeah, I think that'd be one.
Yeah.
Second,
Or first week of March, because it's kind of quiet for us at that time too.
right.
So are you thinking a non-normal council night? Okay, special.
You guys did stay in here,
Yeah,
not the festival.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense to have it here, not the fest hall, not the fire hall.
right. No, this is better. Council chambers. Either the last council in February or the first, or not necessarily the council time, but just toward the end of February or early March.
Will we have to have a special meeting or could we just be another study
We
session?
could do it during a normal meeting.
We could.
It depends on how much time you want to devote to the topic.
I think personally, again, to not set this up to be something bigger than it should be. I think we do it during our normal council meeting.
Okay.
We set that tone and we have a reasonable amount of time for it, but not overdo this.
Do you want it on the first or the second meeting in February?
I would just.
How are our agendas looking for those days?
Let me pull that up, see what we got planned.
Yeah, I hear.
Run us into like
Yeah,
10 or
I
11
know.
at night.
Please no.
Fill the agenda, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Sure can.
Comes up and February, March is gearing up for construction season, so I'm sure Andy will have lots of stuff for you guys.
What are those dates in February? Are you looking for those, Sylvie?
We're looking at February 11th and the 25th. The 25th is a little more packed, but only because we have our standing presentations and public safety reports. That's the only reason that there's more stuff on here right now.
What about the first meeting in March?
Currently, it's just one presentation from Cascade Medical.
Let's go with
The
that.
agenda
How
so
about
far.
March 11th?
Yeah,
March 11th?
okay.
Do you want to do the presentation before you do this discussion? We typically do presentations before action on the agenda. It'll get a lot of people here to watch the Cascade Medical presentation.
Be good. That'd be great for our community to see the Cascade Medical presentation.
And you are as an action, right? Because you've already discussed whether or not. So this is going to be a conversation about whether or not you're going to adopt the resolution.
Right, and it sounds like we're probably going to amend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll give us time to amend the resolution.
Yeah. Some early work on that with potential amendments might be a good idea for us. Moving into that March 11th.
So why don't we add a study
Add
session?
Something to the study session for some amendment
Let's do that on the 25th.
information.
Pro Tem Mayor, is there any open public comment available
Yeah, this will be
tonight?
oh, tonight? This was just a discussion item.
I didn't know this.
But go ahead. What would you like to share? Come on up for us.
Ron Duncan, 224 Cascade. I'm concerned in this that council is considering having a public meeting without a clear definition of what they're trying to accomplish, without a clear definition, without a clear communication of what their position is. And the scope here I mean, if you open a public meeting for this, it will be on the emotional topics. There was Councilman Mike talked about constraining this to making the county follow its rules, which is a presumption that the people that brought the petition for the council to consider stated that the county wasn't following the rules. Has anybody in the city or the council spoken to the county and asked them? Wouldn't it seem appropriate that the city would talk to the county before we have a public meeting to see what we're gonna do? That seems like you have the public meeting, you should know what the situation is. I think the cart is in front of the horse, and I think it's a setup for dividing the community on an issue that, again, is not within the city's jurisdiction. And so without a clear definition, having a meeting without a clear definition and without a clear direction, I think is a mistake, and I think it'll divide the community. That's what I wanted to.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I think we can work on fleshing some of that out at the study session in February. I'm also very familiar with Chelan County Code.
No.
And they're definitely not implementing it the way that they historically do for structures like this, so.
Do we want to
I don't
invite
think we're off base.
Sean to the meeting, or is that getting too stepped in?
Who's too stepped in?
So we're thinking about having a discussion during a study session sometime.
To talk about the resolution
Right.
and what sort of language amendments we might make to what they had originally proposed as a draft. And that will help guide our conversation
Right.
at the city council meeting,
Make it real clear what it is.
what our goals are. Yep. Where we want to go with this and to see if we can get some community support or not,
Right,
see where
yeah.
that conversation goes. You guys comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Sharing.
No.
I just think we should stay out of it, so. Maybe I just want to attend the meeting.
No, we need you. Good, my computer decided to update. Our next discussion item is the fee schedule, specific utility fees. I do know that that's next, even though I can't pull it up. So I think, Andy, you have a presentation for us? Yes. Not press, flip. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so yes, okay, good. Okay. We're here tonight to talk about the 2025 rate fee structure and the utility rate study. And just to give an outline for tonight's discussion, First, I'm gonna give a short presentation over the utility systems in general. I know after the last discussion we had, it sounds like I haven't done a good job of painting a picture for you what our systems look like and what some of our challenges are. Your packet did include specific projects that were included in the utility rate study, and hopefully that makes sense. I'm also here to answer any questions you have on those. But I'll give a short presentation on that. Then we'll go through the 2025 utility rates themselves as we're currently proposing them. And I do want to be really clear that the 2025 rates are imperative for the budget. So that's the first discussion we're gonna have, and then as long as we can get to it tonight, then we'll talk about the system development charges. The system development charges are not incorporated into the budget as assumed revenue. And so my goal is really to get to those tonight, but if not, we can always continue that conversation in 25 if we can't reach a conclusion on those tonight. So that'll be after we go through the rest of the rates. And I did want to point out, we are not going to talk about the 2026 through 2029 implications of the rate study at this time. Again, getting the 25 rates passed is essential for our operations. And so the plan is for us to continue the conversation in 25 together to determine how we're going to proceed with the rest of the recommendations from the rate study. Any questions on the general overview for tonight? And then Rick Emmons is our public works field supervisor, and Chris Klenke is our water treatment plant supervisor. They're both here tonight if there are any specific questions. I don't expect them to know anything off the top of their head, just like you don't expect the same of me. But they are here if there are any questions. So. So first we'll start with our water system. And I'm realizing you don't all necessarily even know where our water system is. So I'm sorry, this is not a great map, but this is the quickest thing I could pull together. This does show an overview of our system. And out here is Icicle Road. That's where our surface water treatment plant is. It's out by the Snow Lake Straw. And we have a distribution main or a transmission main that runs all the way down to Icicle to here, branches off and runs along East Leavenworth, and then also splits off and meets at Icicle, and then feeds the whole rest of the distribution system in the city. Some interesting facts we pulled together for you. So the oldest mains in our system were constructed in 1940. A bulk of our system was built in the 60s. And really with that, we're looking at very old infrastructure that has reached its design life. So when I'm talking about failing infrastructure, this is ultimately why. In 2024 alone, we've had 12 water leaks. And I do want to be really clear that in these water leaks, when we're addressing them, we're not replacing the entire main. This is us excavating the whole main, understanding what the issue is, and putting a temporary patch on it. It is by no means replacement. So a lot of these locations where we have had water leaks, we have deep water lakes in the vicinity just because it is old pipe.
Andy, do you know?
Yeah.
How many of those are like considered major, minor leaks?
I don't know.
Well, major leaks are like the situation that we encountered on Pike Street. We had to replace that piece because we had got to a point that from Titus to First Street, we had done 20 leak repairs in that section. And we got to a point where we had repair vans and tapping saddles stopping leaks so close together that we couldn't add another leak. So that's what started the process that we had to do that. In the 22 years I've been here, from the water treatment plant to the well road, I'm probably cutting it short, we've had at least 30 in that section, and only 2 past the well road to 10. But we have pipe that's in dire need of, other than just us taking care and fixing the leak. Cast iron pipe, when it breaks, it's a major leak because it breaks in the circle, separates. So you've got a 6-inch cast iron pipe till you shut it down, flowing that much flow. The other ones, service lines are less, but.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Rick, when they replaced that on East Pine. So did they actually put in new pipe for each resident along the whole thing? It's like, that's when it was, I mean,
Yes, so Titus to the spot on Cedar.
mhm.
Just defer.
Just for,
Yeah.
so that was all new pipe, all new connections. And that's another issue we have too, not even water main leak, our service lines are that old. A lot of,
As in sewer, is that what when you say
our
service?
service lines being the pieces tapped from the main give you water.
Oh, those, okay, to the
Those are
residents.
all mostly galvanized pipe. Yeah. We used to say if we put 2 repair bands on a pipe, we replaced it. Now we get to the point where we look at, we get ready to put one on it and we look at it and it's like, no, it's just not gonna
Right.
last, so we have to replace it, or it's just gonna continue.
Okay,
So we have a pretty substantial issue. And this is from our consumer confidence report. In 2023, we had 22.1% distribution system leakage. So that's of the water that we produced, we lost 22.1% of that
Wow.
to leaks in the system. The Department of Health recommends that we're under 10%. So obviously we're substantially over that. And in 2023, our total water production was 308 million gallons. And we lost 68 million gallons of water over the year.
jeez,
And when I calculated the lost revenue just based off the lowest tier of the lowest rate we had, that's $72,000 just in 2023 of lost revenue. Again, I think that's a severe underestimation of what that would be. But the goal here is just to really help put that pulse on what this system looks like. Why when we say we have failing infrastructure, what I'm really by that.
We go right
I
there
just
to
want to show an example of a water leak. I don't know to what extent you all have experienced this or know what a water leak in our system looks like. This was last year on Benton Street. It was January 12th. It was 10 degrees or something. It was when we had that cold snap.
Yeah.
And I was walking home and noticed this. I'm like, okay, well, this is a problem. What's going on here? And our crew came in to plow that night, and I think like 4 or 5 people of Rick's crew of like 8 were out sick. It was just kind of the perfect scenario. Everyone out, everyone's sick, everyone had come in at midnight to plow. And this ended up being a really big water leak. So I actually have a video to show you. It's quick, but just to give you an idea, when we're looking at this, when we have a water leak,
Whoa.
I don't know how to make a replay, but I'll come back. You can see water is streaming out here. This is a giant hole in the road. This is directly in front of the church that was shown in the background in this previous photo. So this contributes to us cutting into our roads. Benton isn't in good shape, but this is an issue. This is why we don't just pave over really poor infrastructure. This also can help exemplify why it is a concern from a public health standpoint. When we have this water that's flowing out of that pipe, it's mixing with soil, like there's just a lot of potential for contamination. We're really fortunate we haven't had many issues with this, but it could have a lot of issues. So when we have 12 water leaks, it's 12 times throughout our system this year alone that this is what's going on. These are the issues we're looking at. And this one, I mean, I would say this is relatively typical of what we would find, Rick. I don't know if that's a
That's
fair assumption. But
that pipe right there is cast iron. So when it broke, it breaks the circle and it's separated there. Sometimes if we're lucky, we get to them, we can put a repair band around it, and actually pull the pipe back together. And then sometimes you get one like this, it's super difficult.
And then on top of that, because we had the water that was surfacing and then also had to pump this out so that we could excavate and actually repair the pipe. It ended up creating this giant ice sheet down the road. We ended up having to get Chelan County in to help us because our crew was out. Anyway, so this becomes a much bigger issue than simply getting a few people in there to repair a little leak. It's actually a pretty big deal.
Right.
And then this is just a photo showing. It's really hard to see here, sorry, but this just shows the repair that they did on that section of main.
Was that a main or a distribution line?
Say, yeah, yeah,
Because the main is bigger and then a little smaller.
You've got
Service.
Like, they don't even know the terms of the different sizes.
gotcha. Yeah, so this was like a, I think it's 6-inch.
it's 6-inch cast that we have from. We have from 4-inch cast all the way to 16-inch steel. So there's a lot of different pipe styles. We have ductile iron pipe, we have old cast, and we have old steel.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if either one of you disagree. Stan retired about 10 years ago. I recall those last years that he was here when he was presenting the annual water conservation report. We were under 4% water loss. Year after year after year. So what you're seeing today has exponentially grown just in 10 years. So that makes me think about our last meeting when we talked about, well, previous councils weren't taking care of it. They were, but there wasn't the problem then that there is today.
But the city infrastructure runs on when things wear out, right? There's whatever that's called, right? So they would know that there's gonna be a point that we're experiencing right now. So that's why you plan in those councils should also be addressing that, just not kicking the can down the road. So they're aware that the time was
I just
coming,
wanted to
and here we
clarify
are.
that there wasn't ever a problem.
Right.
Presented to the council. Because staff was reporting.
Right.
Things were good. Now, staff may have known that things were needing, but it wasn't actually pushing the council back then.
Hmm.
Where today, we're letting you know very vocally and openly, here are the problems, here's why, here's what we need to do.
Almost like maintaining the cars, you know, like you do your oil changes every so many miles, you do, you know, routine maintenance and like,
Yeah,
we gotta start treating city infrastructure like a car.
absolutely, yes.
Computers.
Yeah.
I need a new computer now. It's run down.
Um, But so the projects that you have on the list that I provided in the packet cover a bunch of different things and they're not listed simply, but I did want to kind of touch on the major concerns that we do have in our water system. Public health. So some of these items are all about security. You have some of the cameras and the fencing. It's about security for our system, and that's ultimately about public health. Wanting to keep people out of our water system. Right now, there is access to our water system.
Say that again, I couldn't hear you.
Right now, there is access. There are points of access to our water system.
Which is scary.
And that is something that is really important. Like Chris and I talk about this all the time. This is something that we're consuming. We
Mhm.
consume this in order to live, and it's a big deal. To have all of these risks to our water system. And, you know, Chris talks about this all the time, but like, he's the one who has to sign off on the Department of Health records, and the reporting. And so this is something that we are very much thinking about. So, sorry, I'll try to keep this quick, but, securing our system, water leaks. When we have a water leak that requires us to shut down the main, we're draining the main like you saw in that picture, or as much as we can. We also have issues with it, where our valves don't close all the way, but we're working on that. But then we have backflow in places where we don't have backflow preventers. So when we turn off the main on your street and drain it, now the water is draining back from your house into the main. There's potential for contamination there. There's also potential for contamination where we have an open main that we're excavating around. Yes, there's water pressure, but there is still that potential for contamination there. So that kind of lumps in a ton of these different projects as we're just looking at being a lot more proactive in our system and wanting to replace things before they fully fail. Public safety, fire flow, you probably saw on this list, is the driver for some of these projects. Having fire flow capacity is a big deal here. And there are some locations where we do not have sufficient fire flow capacity. So again, projects on the list, this is why they're very important and need to be prioritized. And then utility reliability. We are a water purveyor. It is our job to supply water to the community. And it's important that we have continuous service, that people know that they can rely on our water system and not have to have regular shutdowns when we have breaks and have to turn off a portion main in order to repair it. Storage is something that isn't really even on this list yet. This is something that we are working on as part of our current water system plan. But it is noteworthy, like we need the reliability in our system because we do not have the storage capacity for even one day, during our peak season. If we were fully offline, we do not have enough storage for just one day. I think it's less than even half a day during our peak day. And lastly, we do want to be proactive with this. We want it like the regular car maintenance, yeah.
So do most cities have, like what's considered enough storage to have?
It'll be a lot more detailed when we present with the water system plan, but it's more noteworthy here just because our distribution system has shortfalls, and so that becomes more of an issue when we're replacing a transmission line that feeds from our source or to our reservoirs. So, for example, something that's out Icicle, that's on the one main into town, we would be solely dependent on the well field, right? Or
Okay.
yeah, that does that help?
Mhm.
Any questions on the water system before I jump into sewer? Or any of the priority water projects?
Kind of a general question, so,
Yeah.
and I think I asked this before, but the proposed rates, we had a consultant that we spent tax dollars on to come out and give us expert advice on what the rates should be. And those rates take into account the ability to do the services that are needed for our system, correct? So if we approve the rates, let's say we adopt the whole thing, we aren't gonna go back to the taxpayers and say, we need more money in 5 years or 10 years. We are putting ourselves on the right track, correct? To be able to maintain and provide quality water and sewer to the citizens of Loveland.
Yes, and to be clear, because we're only looking at the 25 rates, it would be if we implemented the full recommendations of the rate study. So over the increases through 29, but yes. Does that answer?
Yes.
Anything else on water?
Do we have a rate study every 6 years?
Yes, every 6 years is what we've been doing consistently for the last, this would be 18 years of planning. So this is our third one since I've been here. I just want to clarify, so the study includes rate increases in 25, more in 26, more in 27, more in 28. There will never be a time that we will hit, oh, we don't ever have to raise rates anymore. Because cost of living goes up, cost of construction goes up, so, but this initial plan within the 6 years, and do we have what those percentages were from Kevin tonight? Are we able to
We've been
show
over-
that? I know we've been
Yeah.
over it, but Mike hasn't been on the council as long as others, so I don't know if he actually knows what those percentages are
I've
for the whole
looked at that.
6 years.
I've looked at that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and I think in 2029, we're proposing like a 3%, so we climb and then just.
Climb and then
Presumably in a few years,
Yeah.
a few short years, we're gonna have all new system, right? Where we're gonna have all the mains replaced that need to be replaced. And so our costs should go down, right? We aren't gonna be maintaining an old system and all of the pipes will be in good shape. Therefore, we should be able to coast a little bit.
Yes, and it, really, that's why we have this repeat line item in here, for the integrated capital improvement program in both water and sewer. The idea there is that that is self-sustaining and allows us, I mean, it's not all gonna be replaced in 6 years, I'd love to tell you that, but it gives us a funding stream to chip away at that.
This is one of the most painful votes that happens, I think, for me.
Yeah,
And in 6 years, we will be back here and it'll be
Someone will.
another,
Yeah.
big increase and
that's where I really do appreciate that you guys have all put a lot of thought and consideration into this, because it is a big deal. It's a big deal to the community, and it really is a big deal to the city and infrastructure that hasn't been replaced. So. Okay, if there's nothing else on water, I'll jump into sewer.
I guess I want to clarify something. So we were talking, when we saw those percentage increases from 24 to 25. The percentage was 15%, and then for 26, it was 15%. But that's not the rate. The water costs are going up. That's the funding for the water that's
It's the
increasing by
revenue,
15%. So
it's the revenue increase.
it's a revenue increase
It's a revenue, yes.
overall. Yeah.
Because, yeah, so Zeke and I were talking about this earlier, this is, I feel like this is an extra challenging rate fee structure, because not only are we increasing the revenue, but we're also totally changing the structure at the same time.
Right.
So it just adds that extra layer of complication on right now.
Well, I think the last time we had 15,000 gallons that you could get that for so much money, that was cut in half. It went down to 7,500,
Yeah,
which is where it is now. And now it's time to hopefully not.
No, it's down to 4,000.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's going to zero.
Down to zero. Down to zero.
We will start building
Now we're gonna pay,
consumption
now
at
people are
So
gonna.
the base rate of, base rate's there,
Mm-hmm.
and then for every 1,000 gallons,
from
up to-
zero. Starting from zero, you will pay for consumption.
okay. Right, so you started, let's say you started $80, close enough. And then for every 1,000 gallons you use, you have a rate for that, up to whatever you use, okay.
For the first 4,000, and then from the next
It
several
jumps,
thousand, it
right,
goes up.
4,000 is a certain rate.
Yeah.
4 to 7,000 or 10,000 is another rate.
Through and this is a conservation model, right? Through people's behavior, they can
Mitigate,
how much they pay every month.
okay,
I promise we'll get back to that. I'll be really quick on this and then let's jump into.
Okay.
But I did just, after our last conversation, wanted to just give a bit of an update on the system. So the sewer system is primarily just within city limits. I'm sorry, again, this is not a great map to show this. But this is golf course over here. And really, we're just in the majority of city limits with the sewer system. And then I believe everyone knows where wastewater treatment plant is in the 14th Street. Okay.
could you say that again, Andy? It didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I have a bad habit of muttering. At the end of
Muttering.
14th Street. Right,
Okay,
that's where wastewater treatment plant.
okay,
So one of the projects in here that we talked about, was the Ski Hill Drive combined sewer system. This is actually a pretty pervasive issue in our system, and I just want you to be aware. I don't know how well known this is to the council, but we call it a combined sewer system. Technically, it is a cross-connected system. And it's very confusing, and these pictures don't show it very well, but we have manholes that have both an open channel of stormwater and an open channel of sewer. And the stormwater sits on the bottom, and the sewer runs in this elevated open channel through the middle of the manhole. And it exists generally in the, I call it the greater Ski Hill Basin. But up Ski Hill Road and then everything to the west that then feeds into Ski Hill has this, and some to the east as well, but generally things that drain to the Ski Hill Basin. Now, as you could probably imagine, this is an issue. And it's an issue when we have stormwater surcharge. It fills that manhole, mixes with the sewer. And now we have sewer going to the river. We also have stormwater going to the wastewater treatment plant. It also occurs when we have a sewer backup. The sewer backs up and then runs through that open channel and overflows and spills down into the storm and runs directly to the river. So this is a big issue. It is something that we need to address.
How long has it been like that?
It's been like that since actually it was modified. This actually was reconstructed because it used to be a true combined system.
Yeah,
Was that in the 80s?
I think so, somewhere around there.
And they actually went in and constructed this storm system underneath the sewer.
Yeah.
I wish I could speak to why.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is something that exists in our system.
And you said that the biggest problem occurs from big runoff. So
Well, force
spring,
backup.
spring flow, smells, that kind of dump.
Yeah, that's where we have the most potential for it. But also, we had to report it. It happened, was it this summer or last summer? I think it was this
Last summer,
last summer.
yeah.
Where we had a sewer backup.
Yeah.
And it happened exactly like this, backed up into one of these manholes, spilled into the stormwater.
So gross.
Obviously an issue, public health, it causes the potential for surface water contamination. It's a big deal. It impacts our community. We have businesses that make money on the river, all sorts of things. Lots of tourists in that area and residents.
Is the city liable for any fines if we pollute the river with our stormwater system?
Probably, yes. Right now, what we've done is we just notify when we do have one of these instances, and so. In a way, it's somewhat putting ourselves on for this, trying to resolve this, and we do have partial funding for that project. But still going after the rest of the full funding for that.
Seemed like the sewer was the least of our money concerns, right, with a rate increase, right? The water is the big one. We need a lot of infrastructure. Was this, I feel like this first one, it's a great photo. It's a great example of that. I wasn't aware that was designed like that. And I'm sure there was a reason, but does this all need to be replaced? And is this in that rate increase? You've shown that? Okay,
It's
good,
it's
yeah.
the project list, for the sanitary sewer capital improvement projects. It's the Steel Drive combined sewer. We've also looked at using the wastewater collection system improvement phase 3 priority 3 line that's in here.
Okay, so those are, that will cover that, okay.
But yeah, it's to the priority projects. The other issue that we have in the sewer system is just aging infrastructure. We have old concrete pipe that has collapsed. Generally, it's okay as long as we don't excavate it, but even 2 summers ago when we were working on our wastewater phase 3 project, we had a short section that we had to go in and do an open excavation on. Other than that, that was our sewer lining project. And when our contractor exposed the sewer main, the entire thing collapsed in on itself. We ended up having to replace all the main because now we have nothing to tie into. So I say that's generally our biggest challenge on the sewer side of things. And then obviously, when we have these types of issues, when we have high infiltration and inflow, that stormwater, when they're mixing, the stormwater goes to our wastewater treatment plant, which just further loads the plant. And then we also can have interruptions of service when we do have things like a magnet collapses. And obviously, as a utility purveyor, that is not how we want to operate. That doesn't lead our customers and residents. I feel like we have a very reliable system.
So Andy, I had a question. So is this combination stormwater sewer on Ski Hill, is that the only place that's like that? Or is that like all over?
I think it's accurate. It's on Ski Hill, but it branches
Yeah,
out.
and then you come down the west side from Poplar Street, all the way down to West Street, maybe even Prospect. That whole side is combined.
It's combined
They come,
sewer.
the laterals that come in to Ski Hill.
Okay. Wow. And it's actually got, I mean, so when you have spring runoff, you're gonna have an issue of mixing storm and sewer.
And unfortunately, there's, at this point in time, other than separating them, there's nothing we can do to stop that, because once the pipes over full, it backs up in manholes, where those are the open spots is in the manhole.
Okay. Oh,
And that happens. There's unfortunately nothing we can do to prevent that one.
you know,
Until they're separated away from each other.
Yeah.
we're looking at, do you know how, like, so we allocate for 25 anyway. Do we have a chance of getting started on this project this year? As far as,
Most likely not in 25.
so this is gonna be where it's at, and this status is gonna be maintained at least for a while.
But the 25 rates do, I mean, it's included in the 25 rates and built into the full utility rate structure that we'll continue talking about.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Point of order, Mayor Pro Tem. Is this rate, is the project schedule public information?
Yes.
It's not included in the packet?
It is in the packet.
No, this is,
It is?
It is, yeah.
On
Yeah,
what page? There's only 80 pages in the packet. It looks like it's only the rate changes.
the project lists start on page 24 of 80. So the first, on page 24, you'll have the water capital improvement projects, and then page 25 are the sanitary sewer capital improvement projects.
24 in the packet is storm sewer fees, rates and charges.
I'm looking, sorry, I apologize. I'm looking in tab 2.3. It shows up on page 24 for me.
It's a table that looks like this. I know one of the other questions that I had was, what are some of the priority streets when we talked about the integrated capital improvement program? I don't want to get into much, I did just want to give you, these are the top or the lowest 8 scoring streets. And more, if you've been on these streets, I think you would understand what we're looking at.
I can't see my street on that list.
That was not a nod.
I will validate that list.
Is on there?
Okay, is everyone okay if I move on? So that is my overview, just to, like I promised, I would give you a pulse on what we're looking at across our system. I am ready to talk about the rates if you guys are. Are there any remaining questions on the existing condition of our system, any of the proposed projects, anything like that?
I really appreciate the list of improvement projects for water and sewer. It was really helpful to see not only the list of the projects, but also the estimated project cost in the years and the funding sources and how that's been broken out. That was really, really helpful. I appreciate that. And I think the community would find that really helpful too. I'm glad that, I mean, it's a public packet, but it might be something good to share a little bit more broadly with the community at some point to show really what we're going to be working.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sam. It's
Have
definitely
have Kara blast it out there.
Definitely a community topic of discussion.
Well, and to note with this list, you know, you can look at water and see that it goes to 2028 for project year, while sewer only shows 2026. Keep in mind, I'm pulling out the annual allocations for the ICIP. So when we pass the capital improvement plan, which you guys pass, we would normally have brought it with the budget timing. However, because Tom departed and Andy took over, I mean, that was Andy's job. And so she has had to transition and share herself across a lot more until she gets someone on board. But we are going to bring back the capital improvement plan again for passage. And that one is the full 6 years that include everything that we do. So we've got the water, the sewer, the stormwater, the streets, city hall, you know, the improvements needed for this building, Osborne potentially, park systems. It's all of the things that we do. So that capital improvement plan is a super critical one. And of course, we only project it 6 years out. Now, what Maggie's working on for Growth Management Act is not only 6 year, but the 20 years. So it goes out, but the further out you go, the less detail you get, because you can't detail out that far into the future. That makes sense?
Totally.
And your CIP is passed, by resolution.
It is.
So we will have that resolution for you next year to get you an updated version.
And it will be very similar to this. I mean, it will be this list. There are some other things that are not. Okay. So if we're ready, let's jump into the rates. I think it makes sense that we start with water. And I was just gonna kind of high level walk through these. I do want to skip the first section in water that's highlighted yellow, because I want to come back to that in case we don't get to this conversation tonight for the system development charges. In section 1, beyond the system development charges, or sorry, not system, not item 1, but the new connection charges. Are there any questions on the new connection charges? Seeing some shaking heads. I'm assuming that we're okay. Oh, yes.
As far as the residential water rates go.
I'm sorry, just the new connection section that starts on the first page. That just goes from item 1 to 5.
Are we done with this?
Okay. I think that's all.
We'll get a visual for you guys.
Okay, here again, I'm gonna keep moving on. Wait, what page is it on?
It's on 9 of the PDF. Page 20 of the rate. Of the, rate
Page
schedule.
23. there.
Oh, no, that's sewer, sorry.
Yeah.
I was at
I
sewer.
was gonna say,
yeah.
I think it's on.
It's labeled as page 16. It's
16,
the
yeah.
second page of the clean version of the rate study.
You said 15?
Yes,
16. Okay.
15.
Sorry, 15 and 16.
Okay.
15 and 16, yeah.
Well, we're talking, yeah, right.
Okay, if there, I'm not hearing anything, so moving on.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So there's, for the larger meter sizes and a couple other places in here, you've got XXXX.
Yes.
I looked through this to find where that is explained. Is that just,
Oh, it's not.
it's such a case by case basis kind of thing, or actual cost, or what is that?
No, that's a really good question. Thank you. Kevin actually was giving me the numbers for that. Kevin did give me the numbers for that. So it's just filling them in. Let me go back to that. So right now, we don't have 2-inch meters that are shown for residential. But in case it comes up, I just asked him to add in the rate for that. And I might put him on the spot. I don't know what he did here. Kevin, by any chance, do you have the on our second page of the water rates, the 2-inch meter for residential inside city limits?
For the water rates, you say?
Yeah, for the residential rates for the base rate, the 2-inch meter inside city limits for residential.
Yes, I have it at 425.30.
Thank you.
There are a lot of X's.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what was
I don't know where she is,
What is it that?
but where on this page?
Oh, talking about the size of the meter,
Sorry,
size.
Kevin, was there something else?
Okay.
Did you hear that then?
Yes,
The 425.30?
yes, got it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the number for the XXX on the first one. And then the outside city limits is just a 25%. It's not bad.
So the X is in various places. So you've got a system development charge for 8-inch with an unknown ERU XXXXX. Basically, we don't have, this doesn't exist in our city right now, I'm assuming.
It does, well,
So
actually, it's a problem. It does exist in our city. They're just not online yet. The new Leavenworth Meadows development does have an 8-inch meter. So that's why we were just adding those in. And historically, it's never done in our rate and fee structure, but Kevin did calculate. I know I have that one in my email. Kevin did calculate that cost for the 8-inch. So
okay, so if we adopt this, we don't know what the number is. But we don't know what the number is.
we can update. I mean, we can share it tonight.
Okay.
And they paid the connection, but we don't have the base rate. Yeah.
Point check.
They've already paid their
It's
connection
gonna be
fees,
more than.
Yeah, I figured they already have, because they already started the project, right?
and I'm sure there was a mathematical calculation to figure it out because it was different than what we had, but yeah. We need usage rates for them.
And I can run through those, and just so you know, the way we have the motion tonight, if when we get to that point, you guys are ready to adopt, it does state per this discussion. And so all the things that we talked about, Andrea is taking notes and recording, so we get it all incorporated. Yeah. Okay, so then as we're looking at the residential monthly
Yeah.
water rates. Oh, hold on, Sharon.
I was gonna say, then the meter size down 8-inch. What would be built that would need an 8-inch?
Leavenworth Meadows.
The better.
Leavenworth
Oh,
Meadows
out
and
there.
Development. Yeah, they have an
Okay.
8-inch there.
All right. And so we don't know how much that money is.
I do have it and I'll.
Oh, you
happily
do
plug
have
it
it,
into
okay,
the-
and they know what it is.
They don't yet because they're not being billed that.
This
They've
is gonna
only-
change because it's new.
Okay,
Oh, on the first page, the one that's highlighted yellow.
Mhm.
We'll come back to that one.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah, it's not, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so as we're looking at, starting on, number 6, the residential monthly water rate.
Right.
So we have those, base charges for all the residential customers. And then under section 7, we have the consumption charges, for all the residential customers. Are there any questions on the residential?
yes. On page 16. Where it's got the residential monthly water rates,
Mhm.
that is not. going to be a part of this anymore. Do I
It
understand
will
that
still be
correctly?
part of it.
Mhm.
It just doesn't include any usage. So even if you don't turn your water on at all that month, you will pay that dollar amount. If you use any water, you'll pay that dollar amount and pay the portion under number 7.
And so if you don't use it, what water amount are you paying?
You're paying number 6. So for you, it'd be like 6A. And
Number
then the
6.
3/4.
Number 6 where? On the residential water rate?
6 inside the
Percentage
city,
of 52.
and your house has a 3/4 inch meter, so that's your base price. That
I
you-
thought
that
we
you
weren't
pay.
doing this anymore. We weren't doing this one.
It just doesn't include use.
It
So
just
what
doesn't include water.
used to happen is you could use 7,500 gallons for
Yeah,
that dollar
yeah.
amount, and now you can only use 0 for that dollar amount.
Okay, so if you use 0, it's gonna be, and your meter is 3/4 of an inch, it's gonna be $79.52,
Yes,
whether you use it or not.
Yes.
correct.
Up to what?
0.
Zero to 0 gallons.
The meter starts running from there.
So you don't get any water for that. You get charged for the
You
water.
just get
when you use
charged
it.
because you have a water
Because
hookup.
you're connected. Yep.
Wow.
Because you have the ability to get water. That's the whole, the
Yeah.
line.
But before,
Yeah.
we had the ability, but we weren't charged for it if we didn't use it.
You
Is
had
that
a
right?
base rate before too. It was lower. You
Uh-huh.
did have a base rate.
Yeah.
And it did allow you up to 7,500 gallons in the base rate.
Yes, in the base rate.
Yes.
And now
But
you're not
now
allowed anything in the base rate that you aren't being charged for. And
Correct.
even if you aren't using it, you're being charged for.
Correct.
But even if we're gone, we were still.
Can I do a no right now?
Even in the system we're in right now, though, we're paying a base rate and it comes with water, but we're paying the base rate whether or not whether we use
Yeah.
the water or not. So that,
Oh, I didn't know that, I
Yeah,
guess. I thought.
yeah.
you
yeah, so
were-
if I'm
Gone,
gone for
yeah.
the entire month of August, I still have to pay
Yeah,
that.
you still have to
rate.
change,
Yeah.
pay the base rate.
Which means all you folks who have second homes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
40% of folks who have second homes who don't use that,
Yep.
they are
They're still-
charged.
Yeah, they're still being,
Yeah.
So this really helps us with our second homes. Everybody pays the rate, whether they're using the water or not.
I think if it's. zero,
And
should be-
it generates the revenue that we need in order to upgrade our infrastructure.
Are you able to have your water shut off? If you're gonna be
People can-
gone, like,
People can ask the city to shut their water off,
But
but
they'll
everybody
pay
will
the-
still pay.
okay,
thank you
They'll
guys.
still have the
Thanks,
base rate.
guys.
Hold on.
Thank you, guys.
That was a question for you
Probably looking at.
So what was it?
about shutting water off, second homeowners shutting their water off.
We don't allow that.
We don't allow.
We have before.
I think it, and
They have to get
Oh,
their
I
meter
get you.
paid.
yeah, oh, turning off meters. We don't allow that for second homes. Anymore, correct? Correct. We still charge them.
We no longer have seasonal snowbird option.
We
okay.
used to though, right?
We used to do.
Yeah.
So if they're gone and a pipe breaks in their house and fills their house with water, oh, well.
They can still turn off
Shut off
their
their water.
water.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you were
Yeah.
saying they couldn't.
Well, we're just saying we still charge them.
Right.
Oh,
They still
okay.
have to pay that.
Okay.
rate. Yeah.
Old and slow. Wins the race. The turtle won the race, remember?
The turtle one, right?
Just to clarify this base rate for a 3/4 inch, I believe the total increase is like $2-ish.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
not that much more, yeah, but
It doesn't include water.
it doesn't include water.
What other questions on this section?
Just because we've been discussing, and I was thinking the same thing when Zeke said it, is there an opportunity, and I know we're really far along in this process, but just food for thought. When we talk about 40% of the homes being unoccupied certain times of the year, if that zero gallons, is there a rate for 0 gallons? And it's like, I'm just hypothetically saying like $250 if you use 0 gallons of water?
I
Is
did
there a
not
charge we can
see
charge for
a way
that?
we Could allow that, that would be,
Legal,
Well-
yeah,
Okay, just
Yeah.
we're just wondering,
Touch it.
hypothetically,
I think it would be really. That gives me a lot of pause, and Kevin, I don't know if you can speak to that more,
You think we're crazy?
I mean, it seems rather, I think it speaks to rate discrimination right there, and
Right.
that's something that's really been
Yeah.
a big issue in the industry recently.
Okay, so I'm way off base. No?
Well, now we just know.
Yeah, now you know. Now you know.
Yeah, we're thinking it. Okay, all right, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, anything else on residential before we move on?
Where's the page that we talked about today where there were no, oh, it's
Just
here,
right
oh,
below
here.
that, the multifamily?
No, the consumption charges.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is number seven.
Seven.
Yeah. So you'll pay number 6 on the previous page that we
Your
just
base
talked
rate.
about, the 79.52 plus you'll pay 98 cents for every 1,000 gallons for the first 4,000 gallons, and then it goes up to $2.01
Okay,
when you go over 4,000 gallons a month.
So you're paying a base rate no matter what, from hell or high water.
Yep.
And then, excuse the term, high water. Okay.
All right. About high
No
snow
water.
for today.
And then on top of that, there's consumption charges.
Mhm.
Okay, I thought that they were separate.
Yep.
Okay.
So for people, if we pass this just for water,
Right.
right now we're paying 77.36. If we pass this for 25, if you stay at 4,000 gallons or less, which is what we're trying to encourage people to
Right.
do, right? And it was the average for people's winter usage when they're not watering lawns and those sorts of things. Your bill will go up to 83.44.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have a document we are gonna share later with, I think it has 7 different scenarios that will show you today's rate versus the new 2025 rate that includes all of your utilities combined.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure there is an appropriate time to ask this question, but the wording is included in this section as well as other places, and that's the low income senior disabled discount rate. So
Yes,
I know one of the big concerns for a lot of us is people who are already having a hard time, meeting their bills, and we're gonna raise the rates for life necessities, right?
yeah.
I'm looking at the 30,000 per year or less numbers, or the 15,000 per year or less numbers. Those haven't been updated.
We
So-
actually just looked at this together, yes.
You did, okay, because I looked at the median
Yeah, it's-
income in Chelan County is $72,000, and low income is considered 80% of that, right? But what is this number based on?
The 15 and the 30
Yeah,
in that. Federal poverty level numbers. So. Didn't know if this would come up today, but I brought it just in case.
Always prepared.
So we looked at this back in 2018. And the current federal poverty level is running at about $15,000. Ours poverty level is 30. We are 200% of what the federal poverty level is for that first discount.
in 2018?
No, this is today's
Okay.
numbers.
Okay,
The last time we did this was in 2018.
okay.
Okay, back then the numbers were lower, and so we raised them to this 15 and 30. Back then, the poverty level was 12,000.
Okay.
So in 6 years, the poverty level has gone from 12,000 to 15,000 at the federal level. So not much movement has happened. So ours is 30, so we are giving double the amount than the feds. Now, your additional hardship discount, the 15,000.
That makes sense, yeah.
It's given a very
State,
significant-
the levels are understanding, I just
Yeah.
didn't know where 30 came from. It seems like if you're making 60 in this town,
So it
Might-
was.
maybe you should qualify
Your
for
household makes 30,000.
some help, but I don't know how to
If-
justify that.
If we did 60 in this town, we would
And if
be
you
probably
are
doing
only
a
making
very
50
huge change
year,
and
You
a
get.
lot more rate increases across the
Okay,
board.
and this
Just
was.
we have
this
so
is
many people
now
We would have
poverty
so many
level.
people that would
Yeah.
qualify and
Yeah,
apply.
and
then
this was
we'd
in
be
two thousand
offering
eighteen.
those massive discounts.
Yeah, okay.
Another
We've
piece
doubled
that I
it,
just
so
recently learned
you
from
get
some
the
hosts,
discount
that
if you
was
30,000
actually from a
instead of 15.
separate regulation. We just put it in
I'd
here
probably
for
make
reference.
30.
So it could,
I'd probably
if that's
make
something you guys did
30,000
want to
one.
change, that would just be through a separate resolution versus updating.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Okay, any other questions on residential? We go to multifamily?
Please.
Any
What,
questions?
I heard multifamily.
Stop the press.
I think the multifamily level is too low.
Interesting.
Because if you have three people that live in a multifamily and three people that live in a regular house, the multifamily is not going to use less water than the other.
This is
Everybody
per unit,
flushes their
though.
toilet, everybody does the whole thing.
This is per unit though, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be, they should be paying what we are per unit.
The unit there has, based on our meter data, they're using less water per unit than a single family home.
And what's the meter per unit?
The base
Complex divided
charge
by
is per residential. unit. So that's where inside city limits is the $23.56 per. So if it's 3 units, it'd be that multiplied by 3.
Let's do 4 because 4 is kind of cool. 4 is a good scenario because
Three's the magic
think about it
number.
this way, Sharon.
So that's right.
If you had a single family home,
I do.
4 people living in it,
Mm-hmm,
you would pay that $79.52.
mm-hmm.
Now you have 4 small units, 1 person living in
No.
each one.
I'm talking about when there's 4 people living in one.
I understand that can
Oh,
happen,
okay.
but I'm just for scenario's sake. If you have a single family residential with 4 people, you have a multifamily unit with 4 units, 1 person in each one. We'll just
Same amount of
pretend,
people.
Okay,
okay?
pretend.
So those 4 units, 2356 times 4. Who's got a calculator? Quick.
About 93.
Yeah.
90.
About 90.
90 something.
Okay,
92.
so 90
24.
90 versus 79. So in reality, not just person to person, 1 in each one. The 4 unit multifamily is paying $10 plus more than your single family rate for just your base rate.
But regardless, this is data driven, so
Right.
Yeah.
these numbers came from using actual measured usage of multifamily meter rates, they came up with this based on data. It's not just like, I don't think this is, the right number. It's actually measuring the amount of water that has been used by multifamily properties.
And we've been collecting that instantaneous data since we put in those new meters.
And
So all of this is based off of.
So is
Data
every
recording.
multifamily unit on a meter?
Not necessarily every unit,
Structure is.
Yeah.
more common, and I think it
The
varies.
structure is
but-
on one.
Mhm. And so,
And then they break it, that break the bill in, but individual
Okay.
units.
And so if I'm in a 4-person house and somebody's in a 4-person multifamily unit, they are paying less in their unit for 4 people than I am paying for 4 people in a house.
well, they're paid less in the base rate, that is correct, per unit.
She clarified 4 people in 1 unit.
They are paid less per, like, 1 unit in a multifamily dwelling versus 1 single family home. The base rate is less per unit, that is correct. And Kevin can speak to this more, but that's because the cost of service per dwelling unit is less in a multifamily.
Explain. the
So,
cost.
Kevin actually had really good notes, I was just reading on this, but there's 1 service to that house. That's 1 service line we're maintaining versus 4 service lines. It's 1 meter that we're reading versus 4. It's 1 account that we're billing versus 4 bills that we're pushing out.
And
Kevin,
Sharon, they're
if
paying
you had
more
other
per
things to add
usage
to that,
too.
please go.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
They
their
will be
consumption-
paying
their
more per
consumption charge is
usage.
higher than ours.
Still paying
Yeah.
a gallon price.
They'll pay 1.4 gallon,
And we're paying what?
We start
98.
at 98 cents for the first 4,000 gallons and they started at $1.14.
Yeah.
That's piddly. I'm really mad about this one.
Jared, I kind of agree with you, but then start thinking about can you imagine if the city said to you, hey Sharon, you can only have 4 people in your house because you have a residential service rate. And then we start dictating like how many occupants in a residential house and how many occupants can you have in your one bedroom apartment, it's impossible to do that. Plus, we don't want that kind of government overreach, right? So I think you have to kind of go at this from that data approach of what is the average across the users for multifamily and single family, and come up with rates that make sense and are fair on average. And of course, you're gonna have people who have one elderly person living in a full-size house, and you're gonna have people who cram 4 college buddies into a one-bedroom apartment. I hope that doesn't happen, but you know, that there's gonna be some examples, but we can't make policy based on those outliers, I think.
Why?
Just how do you do it?
You pay for what you know, what you get.
And Sharon, I think that's where Kevin, if Kevin has opportunity to speak, you may be able to add more onto that.
Yeah, I don't want to take everybody's time with it. If we're voting tonight, can we vote with that one out?
No.
No, I need all rates for
So,
all utilities for moving billing forward.
But would you mind if we let?
Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead, Kevin.
So, just to speak to something I heard, there was some discussion about how much water people use in an apartment versus in a single family home. And, on average for the entire year, one living unit in a multifamily home uses 3,400 gallons, right? And then single family home, that's 6.7 or 67,000 gallons. So
6,700.
they do use a lot less. And one of the things that is taken into an account here is peak usage. And apartments have very little irrigable area compared to single family homes. And that's really where that difference lies, is it's all that summertime watering that happens. And so that additional cost to build the system to meet that summertime demand, that's where, you know, some of the cost is getting allocated to single family homes rather than multifamily homes.
Well, a multifamily home is not using it, so they shouldn't have to pay for it. If I'm gonna water my lawn and it comes out to more water use than when I don't water it, well, then we're paying for it. So we're paying for it. They're not using it, so they shouldn't pay for it. But what we have equal, I think should be equal. Equal payment.
So Sharon, are you more upset? So.
I think that multifamily
Right, but
homes are not paying their fair share.
currently or with the
Currently.
new, okay.
Well, I don't know.
We didn't really change the structure on that particular piece.
Okay,
The rates are changing, but the structure is still there, that was there before.
Yeah.
okay.
We've always built multi-units. As Andy noted, a 3-unit, multi-unit home may have 1 meter,
Right.
but we bill it that rate times 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I used 4, because 4 actually showed the breaking point of where a 4-unit multifamily is actually paying more on the base rate than a single family
So
residential.
you bill per unit, not per meter?
We bill per unit
Well,
in a multifamily situation.
in one bill though, but
Right,
because the
right,
rate shows
right,
per.
right. So, yes, Sharon, does that make sense? So,
It's like 4 bedrooms,
right,
right? You have a house with 4 bedrooms with 4 people in it, or you have a multi-family unit with 4
4
units.
units, right,
and hopefully 4 people. You
right.
could have more than 4, but hopefully you have 4.
So Sharon, they're actually paying more per rate.
I don't believe that.
Per the meter.
Per the meter.
I don't believe it.
That's Chantel.
Per the meter, a 4-unit pays about $10 more than a single family home does.
See, where is that on here?
A 3 pays slightly less.
So it would be 2356 times 4 plus $1.14 for every 1,000 gallons. So they would pay more than a single family home with 4 people in
Who
it.
is they?
The
multifamily.
multifamily.
The people
So that's
living
the
in
example. So
units.
this gets times by the number of units that the meter
Not
is,
per
that the
meter.
meter is servicing.
Right.
So in Chantel's example, a multifamily home that has 4 units in it you pay $23.56 times 4, and that's what they get billed for, plus
Okay, but,
$1.14 for every 1,000
but
gallons.
if they have more people in those units that are in the house, they're not paying the same amount as the people in the house.
No, because we're paying by the unit too, single family homes. Doesn't matter how many people are in them. We're paying by the home and they're paying by the home.
You're paying less, I don't think. Sure, it's got that bill, Jeff.
No,
I believe so.
But again, there's only one meter, so multiply it by 8. Think of an
Right.
8-unit one.
right,
They're paying that 23.56 times 8.
times 8.
So
which
that's twice what a single family home is paying plus some. Now think about usage, so that's just base rate, now there's usage. So Sharon, in your home, it's just you? You use less than 4,000 gallons?
How would I know?
I looked up your account, actually. I used your account on my scenario.
Okay, but I have
So I
2
know.
people that live in my house.
Okay, well,
I
let's
have a
just
daughter.
say you did 4,000 at the 98 cents, that's $4. We'll just round it up, it's $4. In those 8 units, they each use 4,000 too. They're paying for 32,000 gallons of water at the accelerated rates. So not
I
only are
just
they
can't see
paying
it,
more than you
yeah.
at the base rate, they're actually gonna be paying more than you at the usage rate too.
Well, if I have 2 people in my house and we're paying the base rate and they have 4 multifamily complexes in the same thing with 1 water thing,
But they're paying times 4.
Yeah,
I guess my brain can't do it.
it's okay.
I do have one question though. With the residential. We have the way the rate structure is going is you pay additional for every additional gallon, every additional 1,000 gallons. The consumption charge is number 7. So 0 to 4,000, 4,000 to 10, 10,000 to 14, and over 14. Why wouldn't we also carry that consumption charge over to the multifamily?
This was the same thing that we talked about previously, where we have better data on a single family home, where we know what they're generally, we know what 70% of the customers use across the board and what they use for irrigation. And so that was how this was developed, was the 4,000 gallons is 70% of what the average winter consumption was. And
I recall that.
I can't remember if it was the 10 or the, I think it's the 10,000 gallons is 70% of what summer consumption is across. And I think the challenge is with the multifamily, knowing what that would look like, because there's so many variable number of units.
Yeah.
Then the goal here is to incentivize conservation. But without that same data on the multifamily side, we can't set those tiers in the same way with the.
There's not a way to extrapolate that since everything's metered. And
Right now, that's
and break
what
it
we-
down per unit. Because they have to be using more water in the summer, just like single family residences. I think Selby has a good question, why don't we have staged increases rather than just the same rate, no matter how much water they're using?
And just have it like.
Because it's not incentivizing consumption. Or lack thereof, sorry, conservation, yeah.
Kevin, did you wanna add?
I was gonna say, Kevin, this is a Kevin question, it's complicated.
Well, the thing about multifamily is that they're not usually metered for every unit. And so what happens is the bill goes to the manager's office and they just take that bill and divide it by the number of units, and then they make everybody pay that, or it's included. So there's no price incentive directly from the residents of the multifamily complexes to actually reduce water use, because if you have one person that actually does reduce, that might be outweighed by everybody else who doesn't bother doing that. It's really an industry-wide issue, and the fact that it's not, that every unit isn't metered, that's been historically the problem. Some places they're starting to put in sub meters and stuff, but it's pretty costly to the managers to do that. So that, they don't have a lot of incentive. So it really, when we talk about the single family, and by far, most of your water consumption is coming from single family. But it's a lot easier to put in a price structure and rate structure such that it encourages conservation when, the people in the multifamily buildings, they just don't feel that same pressure, that price pressure. So, one of the things that some people do is that they, will set up a program that's specifically for promoting conservation in like multifamily establishments. And then, that program is often charged directly back to those customers. So they kind of end up paying for that program themselves. And so, again, it's just difficult because it's easy to say how much a single family home uses on an individual basis, but it's a lot more difficult when there's no sub meters on multifamily.
Thank you.
Permission to speak on this issue. Then at the end.
Can you make it quick, Ron?
Yes, I can. I think that Sharon's concern is valid, that each family is paying $79 out in the city. And if you live in an apartment, you pay $23 for zero water. So you pay $79 for a family in a house for zero water, you pay $23 for zero water in an apartment. That is inherently unfair. It's irrelevant how many people are in each property because they're paying that for zero water. So the water usage will charge itself. There's no way that a line charge, the cost to maintain the line from the main to the meter costs $50 less at an apartment than it does a month, than it does at a house, because there's no monthly cost for the city. And so that's $50 a month that an apartment dweller does not pay, that a house dweller does. And to even that out even more, we're now putting ADUs on all these properties, which makes them effectively multifamily units. Some of them aren't on separate meters. Some of the newer ones, when they're on a larger one, they are on meters. The same argument that justifies a $23 a month price for a multifamily here would also be valid for a house with an ADU. So you can't say that $23 is fair for one family that could be making $500,000 a year in living in a condo, and somebody that's not making that in a house should pay $79. And neither one of them are paying a drop of water for that. That's inherently unfair. And I think Sharon nailed that. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Ron.
I couldn't hold it.
Thoughts, council?
I think it could be increased.
So the rates have been designed and
Yeah.
calculated based on, thank you, Councilmember Bedard, data. How do we manipulate data? That's what I'm hearing is we have to in some way manipulate data with multifamily.
Yeah, I'd like to hit on my point earlier, because I looked through this deeply and I'm pretty comfortable looking at that data and understanding spreadsheets and these numbers, no matter how much time I spent looking at them, I'm never going to come up with a justification for a different number because I'm not an expert on utility rates. And we spent, again, taxpayer money to hire a specialist whose job is to take the data that we provide and come up with fair rates based on the actual numbers here in Leavenworth. And unless we want to go through, I mean, I have strong opinions, if you haven't noticed yet. I could come in and say, I don't like the way that feels about a lot of things in this, but that doesn't have any justification for where the numbers came from. It's just how I feel. And we've used the data and we have a professional who came up with these numbers. I think that unless there's something super egregious about it, which I understand your thoughts on this, it came from somewhere.
Right.
And we're coming from a position of like how I feel about it, but he's coming from a position of data
Right.
that we paid him for.
Mhm.
And I think we should use it personally.
These numbers also incorporate the amount of residential versus family main distance and how much it takes to repair and maintain that main length. And there is a significantly larger distance between single-family homes for that main line where the lateral connects versus the distance for multifamily and the associated units that happen there. And that's where the big, as we're seeing discrepancy in the various different rates, is because the main line is so significantly larger for single-family homes. As far as the length between units. So we have a lot more distance to maintain that we have to pay our share in maintaining.
I think that you can look at this as inherently unfair, the $50 difference. But I think you gotta trust the data, and I don't think that was anecdotal. I think that was overall statistically supported. And I think it's a fair place to start. And so
I don't
I
believe
do
that
not
it
want to
was.
go
I'd
back.
have to hear it.
Excuse me, Sharon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
No, I'm not finished. So I don't think we're gonna go back in and individually tinker with this stuff. I think we leave it as it is, we take it and get this started. I just think we can look, you can certainly see the difference, but I think there's other factors playing here that we haven't aren't as easily identified as far as what Ann mentioned, and so and also what Mike brought up. So I think this is a fair assessment of what multifamily should be paying.
Well, I think, I wonder how much $50 a month for 6 years. 6 years a month adds up to a lot of money that the water program could use. I'm not saying to cut what the homeowner is paying. I'm saying that it's not a fair deal for the others. And if you raise that, then they would be paying more their fair share, plus we need the money for the water program.
These rates are, as a whole, providing that money. So I don't
Well,
think we're trying to
providing
get as
more.
much as possible. We're trying to get the right amount, and that right amount is determined by the study that was done on this.
I don't know.
I don't think we're
Maybe
just trying
the
to get
person
as
that
much
did
as
the
we can.
study should talk.
That's another study.
Okay. Hi, Kevin.
One of the things that kind of has gone unsaid a little bit, and someone did mention main distances and stuff, and that's definitely a big part of it when you consider, like, oftentimes there's a lot more miles per, for single family than there is for multifamily. But the other part is actually fire related. So in the study, we assume that, for a residential home, it's going to take 1,500 gallons a minute for 60 minutes. So that's a pretty standard assumption that's used throughout the country. And then for multifamily, that's almost doubled. So that accounts for the larger structure. So instead of 1,500, it's 2,500, and for 2 hours rather than 1 hour. So basically the requirements for fire protection is a big part of the additional cost to serve, single family homes. That's a big part of how this study kind of panned everything out.
Doesn't matter, it seems to me it doesn't matter how long the pipe is, they're only using so much water that's going through that pipe. And they should be paying for the water that's going through the pipe. It doesn't matter how long the pipe is or how far the water necessarily has to travel. And as far as fire, that's on all of us, that's on everybody that builds in Leavenworth, because we get a fire in here and it affects everybody.
Well, I'm speaking mostly of structure fires, but it's based on, you know, the amount of time that it takes to fight a fire for a single family home versus a multifamily home. And so basically, you know, there's only 89 multifamily accounts versus the, you know, 1,200 residential accounts. So in the process of doing the math, 49.5% of the fire costs go to residential, where 12% goes to multifamily.
How many fires have we had in the last 10 years? Residential? Yeah,
Unfortunately, we don't fit it.
residential houses burning down. I'm not thinking of many.
Well, and this has a lot more to do with fire protection in the sense of, like, you know, being able to meet, you know, all of the different requirements that you have in your system, such as, you know, if it's the summertime and everybody's watering their lawn, you still have to fight that fire. So the system has to get built larger to be able to handle that fire protection. So to fight a fire. So that's kind of how it all works out, is that we look at different pieces of the system. You know, there's the average day part of the system, there's the peak part of the system, and then there's the fire protection part of the system. And we apportion each of those relative to their use of the system based on the data that we get from your metering information, and also your like master plans and all that kind of stuff. So we go into all that, and we come up with these apportionments for these different customer classes, and ultimately, once we do all the math, it kind of comes down to the rates that came out of the study. Now, one thing that I will say is, like, the difference between the fixed charge and the volume charge, you know, that's not necessarily you know, all related to the study, but it's the total amount of revenue collected rather than, you know, which pieces are what size.
Any other questions on multifamily? The next is commercial, and I know there was some X's here, and since I sent this out, we do have a revision slightly to the service base rate. Can I get permission, Sharon? Please. This says I don't.
I'm sharing it, right? So you go ahead, I'm sharing it.
So in number 10, the service base rate, these are the inside city limit charges. They're slightly different from what you see on your sheet, and they've also filled out the XXX I have on there. And then for the commercial outside city limits, it's a 25% increase on these.
So is this what you would be proposing tonight instead of what's in our packet? So just slightly lower than what we have in our packet?
Yeah, and then the consumption. What we have in the packet right now shows that inside city commercial is $1.41 and outside city commercial is $1.76. Instead, we're saying it will be $1.40 no matter where you are, which is more typical with what we've done in the other customer classes. Across all of them, only the base rate has the difference, the 25% increase for outside city limits, but consumption is the same.
You said 140?
Yeah.
So there won't be an outside price, everybody will have the same rate.
Kevin, assuming that I understood that correctly.
I think so. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
that's
it's a little hard to understand what's being said there all the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this was from our most recent email, just the all usage of $1.40 for inside and outside commercial or outside, inside and outside city limits?
I'm kind of wondering if that's quite the right number, actually. Maybe we got some wires crossed in what we were understanding. Let me maybe try to find what what I sent you.
I guess while Kevin's pulling that up, are there any questions on commercial?
Yes. If I'm looking at that with a 3/4 inch pipe, they're paying $57.18 a month.
As their base rate?
That's it?
That is over here.
Yeah, I was looking at this
Yeah.
here.
Go
57.58,
just a little bit.
and so do they have a consumption thing?
Yeah, they do.
Right here.
That's where we're saying that'll,
It'll be
as long as. I'm right,
$1.40.
Or as long as I didn't get this wrong, $1.40.
So is that for every gallon or
Per
they get
thousand.
1,000 gallons? And for the community, it's every gallon.
Well,
Per
this is
thousand.
every 1,000 gallons per bowl.
For everybody, it's per 1,000 gallons. So for you and me in our houses, it's 98 cents. And for commercial,
98 cents per 1,000
per
gallons.
1,000 for the first 4,000, and for commercial, it's every 1,000, it's $1.40.
So
Okay,
commercial-
it seems like it's, okay,
Yeah,
I don't think I'm gonna go there.
Andy, I think that maybe a better number to use than $1.40 is $1.44. I know it sounds trivial, but that's the calculated number I got.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Kevin.
So commercial, I just want to point this out, because I know that she's looking at those base rates and going, well, why is commercial less than residential? So commercial actually uses a lot more water. And by starting them with this flat $1.44 from the get-go, from, 0 forward, they end up paying more in their total bill because they're using more water than we are in our homes. So their bill ends up being much larger, even though their original base rate starts out lower than us in a home. When you add their consumption use in, because their average, the average in the home is 7,500. The average in a commercial account can be thousands. Thousands and thousands, like much, much more.
I'm not even gonna go there.
Okay.
So then we have the miscellaneous. Any questions on the water rates? On anything else?
Yeah, I was, on the commercial part, I had a question.
Yeah.
We have like I said, the brewery, tremendous use of water, right? So no matter what, if they use for every 10,000 gallons, 40,000 gallons, they're still paying 141 per 1,000 gallons.
144.
144.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, 144. Whereas that's what I'm concerned about is some of our commercial users, whether it's a hotel or a brewery, far out exceed what I'm gonna use, but my rate's higher if I get over, if I get 4,000. Let's say I use, I looked at my water bill in July. I do my garden, it was 9,000. Okay, so under this thing, I'd be paying a higher rate for
After
4,000 than Icicle Brewery does, no matter what they use. That's a question. I don't know if we get to resolve it tonight, but I think we need to take a look at that, and I'm not sure why we don't.
Well, that's where a lot of the data comes in that Kevin worked on. He's looking at average uses across commercial, and that's why I was trying to explain that. They're using a lot more than we are. Where we're tapping out in a residential, I think my largest users are around 25,000 gallons.
Okay,
That's like.
but if we want these guys
I don't
to,
want anyone, but I
That's
know
like
who
Selby
that
with the broken
account is.
pipe.
yeah,
It's not in this room, by the way, but yeah, 25,000 is like the highest residential user. And we're trying to
bring that,
to
Incentivize.
encourage conservation
Right,
with residential, because residential is over 3/4 of our system of users,
okay,
okay?
sure, yeah,
Now,
sure,
commercial uses lots of water, I'm not saying they don't,
right.
but we are trying to get conservation in the homes in particular. Now, we will get conservation from hotels and restaurants. Because as these rates are implemented and their bills go up exponentially, and maybe we should just show that sheet.
Yeah, I would like, yeah.
You have the comparison Excel spreadsheet
They're coming in at 16.
that I gave you.
Right, so it's easier to deliver the water, right?
No,
So-
in a larger amount to it.
Yeah, so.
And
that
while
cost
we're
is
pulling
down.
that up, Kevin
Right.
can also speak to that
And their bills
too.
are $36,000 a month for water. Right?
Well-
Can we make it 72,000 a month?
Kevin, I don't know if you were able to hear that. We were talking about the consumption rate for commercial.
We need to be incentivizing
Versus
the commercial district
residential.
also.
Well, kind of like, it's a similar situation to as multifamily where, the residential uses more water, during the summertime, and commercial uses a more level amount. So that's often what we allocate costs on is the difference between peak day and average day water use. And so, given the fact that residential uses so much more water during the summertime than commercial does, as compared to their average, that's why they end up getting allocated more. And it also comes down to fire too, that, as I said before, residential is bearing the brunt of the fire protection costs.
Well,
Because
I guess I was, in the future, I think we need to take a look at commercial rates and not just forget this, because, yes, you already have a huge bill, but if we're incentivizing our residentials, we should be incentivizing. our commercials.
Absolutely.
And so, and I'm gonna trust Kevin's overall scheme because he's the expert and I'm just picking this up. But I just think it's worth looking at that we're trying to, our big chunk of our wastewater treatment plant is our breweries, no doubt about it. So I mean, and they're making a lot of money. So I think as we work through this, we've got to recognize that and we've got to think about maybe they need to make less beer. It's plain and simple, because it's costing, we don't have the water supply anymore.
Well, one thing to consider with commercial particularly is, it's hard to establish what is efficient water use on commercial, because, there are a bunch of different kinds of businesses that you have in your town, and who's to say that, one place is being more efficient or less efficient. So that's where things kind of break down when it comes to establishing, kind of like the tiered rate structure that we have for residential. It's really difficult to look at it from that perspective. So, again, it kind of comes down to what is considered efficient, and kind of what I was mentioning before about developing a conservation plan or department that, goes to the different businesses and works with them to reduce water use. I think like breweries use, for every gallon that they produce, they use 7 gallons of water. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's inefficient water use. But that's kind of the crux of the issue, is establishing, what is efficient. And again, getting back to the principles of the cost of service being, what is average day water use? Because on average, everybody uses the cost is to serve everybody is the same. It's $2.14. And so then we add in the peak factor here, the peak day water use. And so, that's anywhere from $1.85 to $2.40, depending on, how much your peak day use is. And then you factor in, well, how much does fire protection cost? And so, you add all that up, and those are why the differences between the rates exist.
Well,
Yeah, I
I think
get
we
that.
have to look at it, what you were saying,
Yeah.
I think we have to look at it now Because if we don't, it's 6 years down the road.
Well, actually, this
We
is
have to
just for
visit
this year.
We have to visit this annually.
This is an annual.
This is for the rate and fee schedule.
Right. It's like we're not coming back to this sooner than 6 years.
And Andy said at the very beginning that in 2025, we're gonna go through how we're gonna structure out the fees for 26, and we can have this.
So we're
conversation.
only doing 2025.
This is just for
Yeah.
25 right now.
Yeah.
Yep, to build it into
Doesn't
our
help a
budget
lot, but yeah.
and just establish our rates for
Right.
2025.
And I
Well-
think too, if we do want to break this out and look at different customer classes, my recommendation would be for 25, we move forward with this. But in 26, we could look at having a separate customer class for a brewery, for a hotel,
Mhm.
and then get more clear on what conservation looks like, you know?
I would actually really like that, and I also kind of challenge the statement that was made about how we can't figure out what those averages are and have an incentivized structure, because just the way that we did with all the residential customers, when we don't know how many people are in individual homes at any given time, we still created a structure that incentivizes conservation based off of that 3,000 gallons, and that was the average winter consumption, right? And we can do that seasonally for our commercial customers as well. We have the meters, we can extrapolate that information. So I think we can also build an incentive structure that has our commercial varying different types of uses,
Yeah,
really looking at conservation.
yeah, and that's our challenge right now. If we don't have those in different customer classes, we can't say that, I don't know, a boutique downtown should have the same structure as a hotel, but right now they
Right.
all fall under just pure
Commercial.
commercial.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we're like, yeah, we don't have the data.
Right.
And it's not that we don't have the data, it just doesn't exist when you have them all under one customer class. But that's very much something we can continue to explore in 25 and separate those out and then have different rates and incentivize construction for each customer class, absolutely. But again, my recommendation would be
Right.
to move forward with 25 and then reevaluate that once we're in 25. And we can always adopt a new resolution in 25 if that's something you wanted to implement mid-year. Chantel's team is gonna, they will not be happy, but that is absolutely something we can do.
I'm struggling with the fact that we have less than 13, 9, 8, 7. We have less than 7 days, work days left in this month. And whether or not we can actually program the system in time for January 1.
Andrea, can you zoom in on the Excel sheet, please?
I'm actually, yeah, I was gonna have her zoom in because I wanted to go through it.
Thank you.
Are you guys ready for this? So this is a comparison for you to see. What we're doing here is we're looking at, if you go all the way to the top, Leandria. Just want over to see the titles. So this is the current December 1, 2024 bill that we sent out, and it's gonna be this whole column. This is the new rate that is being proposed, and note that we have water, sewer, stormwater. Note that residential doesn't have garbage, because that's waste management, but when we get down into multifamily and commercial, they do have garbage.
Right.
So I wanted you to see an entire bill. So for single family residential, the monthly increase, $12.14.
And that's just based off of the 4,000 gallon
This
usage.
is actually based off of this person's account. And I'm looking at the data, I wanted to make sure, is it 4,000 average?
Right,
Her average is actually 6,935 for the year.
okay. So this is based on 6,000.
There are
Gallon
spikes
usage.
in summer. Where she was in the 18,000 gallon
Right,
range,
right.
but then there are lows. In the 24 to 3,100
Right,
gallon range, so 4,000 was not a good average. Your total yearly average 69.35. So increase $12.14. Single family home with a 3/4 inch meter. Then you have multifamily. So this multifamily has 30 units. Their increase is $296.90. Because here's their total bill. So single family, 163, total bill that this 30-unit complex pays, $2,385. If you divide that $296.90 by these 30 units, they're getting a little bit of a deal. Their average is $9.89 per unit.
Increase,
Yes,
right,
yeah, the increase.
right.
Okay, let's go down to a multifamily with 6 units. Total dollar increase, $78.92. Per unit, that's a $13.15 increase to them. So this smaller multifamily unit per unit is paying more than the single family residential.
But not as much, their increase is more than what a
It's going-
30 unit. Per
30
unit,
units gets the savings because there's more
right,
to spread it around.
right,
But a 6 unit actually is still paying more
right, than a single.
than a single
right,
family residential per unit.
Right,
Okay. Let's go into commercial. So now we're into real commercial accounts. I only did 2 multifamilies to give you an idea. So this is a commercial account. It is a small shop that could have food, but no grease. So they can sell candy, things like that, but they're not putting anything into the sewer system. They also have a 3/4 inch meter. Their monthly increase is going to be $34.65. So we're talking about a small mom and pop downtown that maybe has one restroom in their shop for themselves that they don't share with their customers and are selling wares. This could make or break over a year, some costs for a small mom and pop. Let's go down to the next one. So this is a larger restaurant with a 1-inch meter. Their increase is $285.97 per month. A medium to large restaurant with a 2-inch meter, $292.65. Not too much difference here. But that is over $3,600 almost per year increase to these 2 types of businesses themselves.
I think it's probably worth pointing out the percentages, because it does sound like a lot of money, but if you're operating a restaurant like that, you're already paying, what do you have there?
Yeah,
Control that like
28.
$3,000 a
Yeah.
month for your utilities, and so you're gonna pay another 12% on 11%.
Do you guys need something signed?
We're just doing it visually, so.
Okay. Okay,
Cool.
thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
And the last one I did was a 100-room hotel that's running a 3-inch meter. So Hampton Inn. Their increase is $583 per month. So we're talking about $6,000 per year added to them.
Peanuts
But is it?
for them.
They have employees, they have overhead, they have insurance, you know? These are big numbers. You guys are gonna definitely get some pushback when we roll this out. And I don't think you're gonna get as much pushback from those single family residentials as you're gonna get from these businesses.
I won't push back.
Just saying, I take all the heat upstairs. I deal with the checks that are given to us that say highway robbery, here's your paycheck. Thank you for stabbing me. Yeah, we actually get those kind of comments upstairs.
Yeah.
It's painful. It hurts for my finance team.
Well, let's move on then, you know.
I've had a
Bye-bye.
commercial business come in and dump an entire bag of pennies on our counter and go, here's my water bill this month. Good luck counting it. I mean, that is what we have to address whenever we raise rates. This happens every year.
right.
This is substantial. I just want you to know, this is extremely substantial. I've never seen this size of a rate increase. I am a proponent of it. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't do this. I want you to know that I firmly believe Andy is right. We are in dire need and we need to move forward. But I wanted you to see the magnitude of all the different effects to the different users.
Right.
Because just talking about $1 here per gallon or 1,000 gallons, that doesn't put it into perspective where this
No.
really does.
So I should be paying my water bill. I should cancel it being automatically paid and I'll bring in my pennies every month.
If you want to bring me pennies, Sharon, I will personally count them. Yes.
You guys don't have a county machine?
No. We actually don't get a lot of cash anymore.
Right.
We, with Express Bill Pay, which I implemented about 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
We're currently at probably close to 70% of our customers that pay electronically.
Really?
Only 70?
Oh, that's a lot.
That's a chunk.
That's a lot.
Pretty high, considering the different types of demographics we have.
Yeah, we still get a lot of checks. Yeah,
You're so young.
there are still a lot of people
I
that
still
mail their
write that.
checks. Very few come in person anymore.
To your point, and you had mentioned earlier, Karen needs to send out that first slide. That was so well done. 1940s, these, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's a great,
Yeah.
and that's what we wanted from you. One part of what we wanted
Right,
tonight was like,
exactly.
leading with that was really great. So
Yeah.
that put really perspective. And this last slide, if it's the last slide, with the
It's
spreadsheet,
not.
it shows really, it breaks it down. I mean, it's, that is very impactful. We had this great discussion along the way with Sharon. We're talking about the multifamily housing. It breaks it down. That was a great wrap up to that conversation.
But we're not done. I just.
To that conversation.
I felt
that
like
conversation.
if you saw that,
We
that
can
might
vote-
put a
vote
little
now.
perspective into what we're really talking about when we're talking about the nitty gritties that are going on in all the different pieces of the rate structure.
All right, should we pick back up?
Yes.
Okay. So that was commercial. One of the items that we do have, so 10C, you'll see in here is the irrigation services. And this is something that I'm wanting direction from you on. So right now, people who have separate irrigation meters are currently allowed to turn them off and go to a reduced base rate. What we're proposing in here is only allowing those for irrigation of public green spaces, which would be for the city and for Cascade School District. The one thing that Chantel pointed out is that there are commercial businesses who do have separate irrigation meters who do go to this base rate right now. And if we change this, it will impact their bill. And on the city side, this is all of our parks, our cemetery, and the reason that we have this is really it hits our general fund. And we essentially transfer money from the general fund to the water fund if we bill ourselves at the normal base rate through the entire year for our irrigation meters. And same thing is would have a big impact on Cascade School District if we didn't allow them to go to this reduced base rate in the winter. But
I do tap off G-Tex for a lot of the
Oh, do you?
parks,
Okay.
yes.
Has Kevin looked at this? How does this shake out? How many businesses will this affect? This rate went down, is it?
Well, I have it right here.
yeah, we didn't have.
I think without sitting here and counting every single one, there's somewhere around 40, maybe 50.
With separate irrigation?
And almost
management
half of the
meters?
accounts are city owned.
Well, so I'm asking what, beyond the city-owned ones, who is this, they said this is gonna affect the businesses or other
It
private?
sounds like there's approximately 25 businesses that are on it, and so
And looking at this list, I see hotels, Cascade Medical Center, the school district. Hotels.
And so they should pay the higher rate is what you're recommending?
we're proposing only allowing this low irrigation base rate in the off season for places that have public green space. And it specifically states that it would just be City Leavenworth and Cascade School District. But it would allow it would not allow those locations to go to the reduced winter base rate.
So all the hotels would pay the normal rate, they wouldn't be allowed to
Yeah.
lower their rate.
And just for that one meter.
The hospital.
Right, and we've offered that in the past because like Cascade, it's a nice green patch of grass they have there, right? And that potentially could go away because they're like, whoa, you guys turned
So-
our rate went up.
So irrigation accounts.
Yeah.
Do all get shut down generally in the fall.
Yeah,
Because if you
sure.
don't shut down your irrigation account and blow out your line,
Yeah.
your irrigation lines
Right,
blow up.
Yeah,
in the
really,
winter.
sure, yeah.
So yeah, your irrigation accounts typically always get shut down. The city has a process. We shut them off around October 1 and we bring them back online around May. And then we start watering again. So all through the winter, we've always allowed anyone with an irrigation only account, that's all that meter feeds, is irrigating your grass, your field, or whatever it is you have. I see that Enzian Falls is on here. So the waterfall that's running at the little mini golf course. The golf course is on this list. The golf course is a city-owned
Right.
public land, but it's run by the golf club.
Yeah, but they have their own well.
They have an account. They have an irrigation account. Yeah.
So what's our justification? And it just, this kind of seems like the example before, can we charge more for people who don't use any water, you know, the absentee owners? How can we justify giving a break to just the city owned and school owned properties and not everybody who's not using their meter for the winter?
Because nobody's using it. Everybody
Yeah.
Because
shuts
they're
it down and blows them
public
out.
access facilities. That's where we were
That's
going
what
with
we were
it.
proposing and not allowing anyone else to do it, but more, I mean, it is a big concern of ours to have a big financial impact to Cascade School District. Like,
Right.
and again, that's why we were proposing this language that's just about the public benefit, so it's not private property that the general public can't go access. That was how we were kind of drawing the line. We might would be justified.
And
Is
then
it-
Where's the normal operational irrigation rate in here? Because we're talking about the off-season rate.
Yeah, otherwise it's always, so they will have one of the meters and they fall into the base rate and the consumption charge for irrigation as well. This is only looking at turning that meter to the off position. And
So
right
during
now.
regular irrigation system, it's aligned with a regular
Mhm.
water
It's paid
rate.
exactly.
If they are a
the same.
commercial
both the
account, it's a 3/4 inch base rate. If they, I don't think there's
Okay.
single residents on this list, but maybe that one right there.
I feel like
Yeah.
that needs to be outlined in here, because I didn't know where to find like on-season irrigation rates, because it just doesn't say that goes to the regular monthly water rate.
And more than anything, we don't have that in there because it is just a water connection. It just operates the same as any other water connection.
So
So
it's
it's
just
billed the
the
exact-
service base rate.
Yeah, so it's, like Chantel mentioned, I'll just pick on NCN because she mentioned that one, like, they have their service to their building and then they have a second service just to irrigation. They're billed according to the meter size and the consumption. Identical to the whole rest of the rate. It's only about that turn off period. Because right now they're allowed, I don't know what our current is.
But I guess what I'm saying is, how can we charge them a service base rate for their irrigation line when we don't outline it in our fee schedule?
Well, throughout the year when they're using it, they're paying the normal base rate.
But it's an irrigation line, not,
But
But it
what,
doesn't matter.
but what we've always allowed is
but
during.
don't we just need to say that?
I don't think we need to say it because it is just a service. It's a water service billed the exact same as any water service. We don't differentiate what the type is.
Because they're using treated water.
We're using treated water.
The school district is using treated water to grow for the football, well, not,
But-
to grow grass, all
yeah.
play fields.
We do that in all of our parks too.
Yeah. So what we're saying is,
We can get into at a different meeting how unfortunate that is,
Yeah.
but.
Yes. And there's
Yeah.
definitely lots of room for improvement there, right?
right,
But I guess what we're trying to get at right now is if you're okay with the structure where we only allow City of Leavenworth and Cascade School District to go to the reduced rate. And otherwise, whether or not you have an irrigation connection or just a normal connection for your building, you always have to pay the base rate. Regardless of whether or not your irrigation meter is on.
I like the idea of treating all irrigation accounts the same, regardless of who owns it.
So if we're gonna do it for public at this reduced rate to be off, then everyone that has an irrigation line should be treated.
Because it-
Or we don't
in
have
the end,
to
it doesn't
see
matter
built in.
where it's publicly accessed land or not, because it's not being irrigated. It's
Yeah,
not
nobody's
accessible.
using the water.
But the reason that we were looking at doing this is just, well, it's really because that base rate is supposed to pay for the impact of the system, and because they are connection. We do have to account for capacity being for that irrigation, and even though it's not being used to consider.
There's still a rate, it's just that it's just a reduced.
To reduce rate, so that's what you would like to see, is just allow all irrigation users. to
Well,
go
I
to
mean,
the-
it's a service rate and nobody's getting any service. They're just being
So-
billed for it, right?
So she redid the language and she moved it around. Let me read what it used to say. Installed with a meter and no consumption. In parentheses, for construction or irrigation purposes only. So when somebody shuts off that meter, calls us and says, hey, we're gonna turn off our irrigation account for the year. Can I go to the lower base rate? We go, okay, and we turn to the lower base rate. Then at the end of the month, when we run our consumption numbers, we check every one of these irrigation accounts. And if anybody has any usage, we call them and go, hey, you're actually using water. You have to pay the full base rate. You need to turn it off if you want to turn it off, but you're gonna pay the full base rate this month. So that's the mechanism that we use, is to verify each month or each billing that they are actually not using any consumption to have that rate.
And I guess. Really what my initial proposal was that we don't allow people to go to this reduced base rate. Like across the board, because they do still have an impact to our system holistically, whether or not they're using it in the winter. Like our system has to be designed to account for them. But that's when Chantel and I were talking about, it's like, this actually has a big impact to our budget and to the school district budget. And touching on the piece about the construction that Chantel mentioned, that's something that I'm pretty adamant to not have a construction rate. Because what happens is those people are tied into our system, they have a connection, even though they're not using it with full consumption like a normal house would be. They are still directly impacting our system, we still have to maintain the line to their house. And we have had issues where people haven't notified us that they have moved into that house and started using it, and then we have to backfill them for those. So I just, across the board, once you're connected to our system, I want you to be paying the base rate, you're impacting us.
I have a question for Kevin. Kevin, you there still?
Yeah, I was on mute, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Would you consider if Andy's approach, just not for the bus or anything, but if we included C, whereby we allow the city and the school district to go down to a lower base rate for irrigation, but we don't allow anybody else, is that rate discrimination?
Well, you bring up a good point, normally if if it's the same service, same type of service, you shouldn't charge two different kinds of rates. So I kind of agree with that a little bit.
Especially Andy, when you said, we looked at it, it impacts our budget, so we wanted to adjust it for us. Oh,
Yeah, that's a fair
I
point,
don't really
thank
like
you.
that.
My concern with eliminating C is that the city has about 25 irrigation accounts.
That you want to be able to monitor through this process.
Well, that we are paying this $23.85 per month instead of inside city limit base rate on 3/4 inch meter, $79.52. So that's almost triple. And
We have like 2-inch connections we have large connections for our irrigation.
so what this will do is almost triple, about 7 months out of the year, our water bills for our parks.
Is somebody
So-
proposing eliminating it, or we're just proposing
Well, that's what
including?
you just
I was
asked.
just asking. So I was like, do we eliminate C or do we just have everybody qualify for it?
Everybody who's has a landscaping, I'm just trying to figure out how many dollars we're gonna lose by lowering the rate to them, but the savings that we'll have and not using the general fund. I mean, it seems like I see it as pricing discrimination as it's written here. And I think, I'm just wondering, we're gaining by reducing the rate for us, but also making it fair for people that the 25, and it doesn't sound like it's a whole lot of people and a whole lot of water usage. I think it's.
Well, it's no water usage because they shut it off.
Yeah, it's no water usage or whatever. I would recommend
Take the link.
we don't mess with that one. If that's where you're at with this is a rate discrimination. I would say we definitely keep this the way that it has been.
But not the-
However, I agree with Andy about the construction ones. Because that one has been a problem for many, many years with the city, with people getting on that construction rate during construction and then not contacting the city when they do go live. And sometimes months can go by before we catch them. And it sucks
Yeah.
because we have. to
It's a
then
lower
bill
rate
them
for
a very
construction,
huge- Yeah.
Well, and it assumes no consumption, but then some people have small consumption and it doesn't necessarily get flagged, and there's, like, for example, there's one person who's building their house themselves, they've been on a construction rate for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 25.
It's not personal, it's more a function of how our system operates.
Right.
Okay, so we will revise C and we will take that out and allow that for all irrigation meters then. Yes,
Keep C, but everybody qualifies for it.
yes, yeah,
Everybody
correct.
qualifies for
We'll
it.
keep it the way it was for irrigation. What we'll take out is just construction.
Right.
I've had this discussion with community development on several occasions, and we went around the concept of when exactly do we implement the utility rate? Is it upon installation of the meter? Is it upon certificate of occupancy? Or is it upon actual usage that we start seeing through the meter? And it's like, well, you know, who knows? Well, this guy, he used 5 gallons of water because he was working on the house and he flushed the toilet once. But I get her point of it.
I think it would be fair at occupancy. Because at occupancy, then
Well,
they can
she
start
should
operating, right?
add the meter install.
because they can also
the meter-
choose
Yeah,
to just
I
not install the meter, like not have their service tied in until later. That's a
Yes.
choice that a homeowner makes.
Yeah, as long as we're upfront during development and we explain to them, once that meter's installed, you start paying. You can hold off installing that meter
Right.
as long as you
Or
want.
having your service line installed.
Thumbs up.
Okay, moving on. Anything else on water? There's miscellaneous charges. I don't know if there's any questions.
I was gonna wonder if maybe, do you need to raise that rate of the winter rate for, you know, in the non-use?
Do you want it higher than 2385?
Remember, like,
Oh, let's
I don't think they
see.
did.
No, it's the same rate. So this one is, by the way, it's not part of the rate study that Kevin actually gave us numbers for. Kevin has given us recommendations that we should be looking at a minimum for our miscellaneous fees, which is where this falls under,
Mm-hmm.
an annual CPI,
And what?
an annual CPI adjustment.
Oh, okay.
So we can definitely incorporate that. I know Andy made some changes to some of the miscellaneous fees.
I think all the others.
Was there a consistency to any of it, or how did you recommend those changes?
Well, a lot of them are calculated off water usage and some of the previous fees. And then some of these are just based off the increase in staff labor hours that we're using throughout the rates.
So some of it could be a check form of, here's what the rate was back then, and staff time cost us X.
Yeah.
But today, this is what we're doing, and staff costs are more, so you kind of took that into account as you
Yeah.
were playing with those.
I'm not gonna die on this hill. I just thought you wanted to have
We can raise it, no,
yeah,
Yeah,
I wanna raise it.
okay.
are you comfortable
I'm
with
just
this?
wondering if the CPI works for you.
Are you comfortable if we say that we will raise it according to CPI since this was last adjusted? And we'll consider that. Like, we can make
Yeah.
that change.
Yeah.
If you pass a motion, okay, that'll be our discussions, or
Okay.
we'll put in our notes.
Okay.
All right.
Cause Kevin has a very specific CPI that he's mentioned to us. Kevin, do you wanna clarify what that particular CPI is?
Did I tell you that one?
You mentioned using a certain one.
Well, I mean, I probably said CPIW, but there's different ones for different areas, and I'm trying to think if there's like a Chelan County one. There might be. I can double check that and get back to you. I can look it up right now and try.
Oh, you don't have to look it up right now. Annie and I are gonna have to finalize these numbers tomorrow.
As long as you're good with that, that's how we'll proceed, is adjust that with CPI.
I'm great with it.
Okay,
Can we have a short recess or?
yeah, please.
Yeah.
Is that all right, Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm good with that.
Come on.
You didn't get a break between study sessions?
Office.
All right, folks, we're back.
All right, Andy. All right. Sewer hopefully will be way quicker. There's like 4 charges. So we're gonna skip the new connection. We'll get to that at the end, assuming we make it that far. Under number 2, I guess that is still under the new connection. That's just our installation, inspection, connection charges. And then we hop into residential. Are there any concerns on the installation, inspection, connection charge under number 2 in sewer?
What page?
Yeah.
It's labeled as page 22.
22?
Yeah.
Okay, just check, okay,
Number 2 on 22.
all right, I'm there, thank you. Yeah. Installation inspection, right?
There's no concerns. I'll jump into residential, but I want to give you time. Okay, I'm gonna take silence to mean, go on.
Yeah.
Yep, no, thank you.
Yep,
The residential monthly sewer rates are not changing. I'm assuming there's no concerns there. Multifamily. Any questions or concerns on the multifamily? And those are per, oh, you know what, actually, I need to correct, there is one mistake. On number 3, residential, both A and B inside and outside of city limits, it says per dwelling unit, that was a mistake. The residential, it's just total for the account, so, that is crossed out for the per dwelling on 3A and 3B.
So no matter if they have an ADU or anything.
Does not matter if they have an ADU.
On the multifamily, is it inside the city limits, 37.99 per dwelling unit? And inside, almost double per dwelling unit.
We're getting rid of per dwelling unit. It's just for each property.
What's the difference?
Like if you had a single family residence and an ADU, your total bill would still just be 64.45.
And not paying for the ADU,
They would all be under one bill.
the 64.45?
Yeah.
Really?
This
is the original.
How come we do that?
The multifamily charge.
I was removing because they're often on the same line. They aren't gonna have an individual, they aren't gonna have 2 individual lines. It's gonna all be at one line coming in the property.
And so for the multifamily, is this one line coming in?
They get charged times the number of units. So $38 per unit.
So if there's 5 units, there would be 38.
38 times 5. Yep.
That's what.
Makes sense. Okay, so it's just, sorry, we were having a little sidebar about the original and the new. So she is clarifying that the per dwelling unit language only comes out off the residential.
Right, right.
That's
Stays
not
the
multifamily or the.
I think it was a mistake in the old version because we don't, for someone with ADU, we don't charge them double.
Extra.
It's just one flat rate, so that's why that's coming off. Okay. Sharon, did you get your question resolved?
I have a question, so someone has a house. Their monthly sewer rate is 64.45. So then they had an ADU and renting it out. And so now it's still 64.45.
It depends on the size of the ADU, so in our code, if the ADU is over 900 square feet, it has to have separate connections for water and sewer. So if it's over 900 square feet, it would have its own utility bill, and it would get charged this amount as well.
But if it's 850,
Yeah, then it does. Then it's just included in this 64.45.
Because the line coming in just gets split to the 2 units. And
Right,
there's
but
1 meter.
but what do you have 3 people or 2 people living in an ADU? They're getting, now you've got 5 people using that line instead of the 3 in the residential. I mean,
What if you have 10 people living in the home?
well, I'm just saying, typically,
They're gonna use more water.
This kind of goes back to the conversation about how we can't dictate how many people are choosing to live in a house. We can't govern that.
right, right. So we're just gonna go, as long as it's under 900 square feet, the ADU isn't an additional charge.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's the
water
way the
is-
code was adopted, when you guys adopted the ADUs.
Right.
We
That
did
was,
that as a savings to encourage that type of development.
I remember
So,
that.
so if you do wanna change that, it's okay.
Right,
But what we also need to now do is go back to the code and
Mhm.
change the code
right,
to affect all of the units that currently have ADUs.
okay.
Under 900 square feet.
Right. I'm just thinking maybe, not tonight. I'm just thinking that we're thinking about incentivizing and conserving water. Because this is the sewer part, but doesn't their water rates also operate under one rate for two buildings?
Yep.
Yeah, they only are charged one base rate.
Okay,
Their consumption obviously is still incorporated with the
right,
one base rate.
okay,
But yeah, it wouldn't get changed here, it would just be in the code.
okay.
So if that's something you wanted to explore, we can, but not tonight, please.
Not tonight.
That's a 2025 problem.
Yeah, that's usually that's the problem. Any other questions? Multifamily. Commercial. So the service base rate, we have the increase in the service base rate, which is number 5. Which then also increases the food service surcharge, because that food service surcharge is 75% of the base rate. So that will now be $60.46 for a business that has a grease trap.
It'll be how much?
It's an additional $60.46 per ERU of water.
You see that on number 6 for commercial?
Oh, down there. No, I didn't.
We have this base rate, and then they had a food service surcharge for grease, which is 75%
So
of the
summer
base rate.
Is that more than it was?
Residential
No,
has
it's
no
always been
increase.
75%, so this
But
rate went up,
commercial accounts
and so
associated
this
with
rate
grease
goes up
traps
because
are
it's associated
being
with this rate.
increased.
Okay.
The multifamily
Here's
has
the,
a slight
this
increase.
is the red line one. So they changed the
Oh.
base rate, and then it went 75%.
How did I not get a red?
It's in the back. I'm following the red
I
line, so
see.
she's not following the red.
I don't know. I know.
Oh, Andy wasn't talking.
Oh, I was saying. am I
Andy
not
wasn't
right
talking
spot?
about the red line.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
You were in the next call.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Andrew, you're fine. Andy's been calling attention to the non-red line one, so that's, well, I was just
Oh, yeah,
explaining that
thank
to, I was just explaining that to Sharon.
Do we have all the places that have grease traps?
Yeah, we have a list.
Nobody's got a non-grease trap, everybody's got a grease trap.
No, there
Oh,
are some
that's
people
fair.
that do not have grease traps that probably should have them, but yes, we have a list and we do inspections.
So finance has been working, over the last several months, minus the turnover in community development. But we are coordinating on a monthly basis to have meetings so that we can talk specifically about this exact issue. Because what we find in billing is that someone in a business downtown that didn't have a grease trap or perhaps had different numbers of bar stools, because there's language in our fee structure for how they're assessed. What would happen is a business would move out, a new business would move in, a change of occupancy would occur, but no one would tell finance. And so in the billing side of things, they would be without a grease trap, being charged a grease trap. So we're now working together to work on that communication level, make sure that we are getting all the change of uses through billing when they are occurring through approval with community development.
Does the fire department go through and do the grease trap thing?
No, that's the city.
We have,
That's our FOG program that's run by the wastewater division.
What does the fire department go through when they go through looking for?
fire, life, safety,
Probably sprinklers?
Sprinklers. yeah.
Exit signs, extinguishers, smoke detectors.
Okay, I guess I thought they did
You would-
grease
Yeah, we got
traps.
fire.
Maybe they did a long time ago.
There, I think you're right, Sharon, there was some coordination where they would let us know when they were doing inspections, if they saw like a change of use happening. They would bring that to our attention, but that was before we had a third person working at the wastewater treatment plant. And when we brought that third person on, it was specifically to add in the duties for the fog alert. That was and grease inspection services.
And do we, it seems like over the years, maybe maybe way back then and not now. That when they go through and do those things and tell a person they needed to get one, the person never got one and nobody ever came through and they didn't get a late fee or anything or.
Yeah, but there is a $500 fee in here for non-compliance with the FOG program. That's line 10, in here under miscellaneous charges.
There, I see it.
And honestly, we haven't been doing our FOG inspections right now. I think I mentioned we only have 2 of 3 operators right now. But we are re-implementing that program with electronic software, so it's much easier for them.
That $500 fee was implemented because we had no teeth.
Yeah,
They would just say, yeah, bill me your fine.
yeah.
So we made this huge fine. And now they go, ooh, I don't want to pay that fine.
And so now there's some kind of a thing, nobody needs to go there. They just,
will
some
still-
system
No, stuff
finds
is-
that there's not a grease trap.
We will still need to go there, but they'll just be able to report so that we'll actually see when we get it pumped out, those sorts of things.
Okay.
I'll give you another update on.
Okay, it just seems like a lot of times there's no follow through. Maybe they get a thing that they're supposed to pay $500 and there's no follow through and they know there isn't gonna be, and so they never pay it.
And that's why we're looking at just fully overhauling the system. of business. Any other questions on sewer?
Can I ask why there are exceptions built in for Cascade School District and the city pool? When we're talking about fair and equitable tonight,
And honestly, that is where I was kind of modeling the water after, but I think that's a good point, that it's, yeah. You can, I don't know what happened.
So they were closed was the concept in the past. These facilities are closed during certain months, therefore, for the pool, so let's focus on the pool. You shut down the pool, the building is completely closed, no one's in it. So should it have a ongoing bill? Yes, it could.
I guess
Yes, it
the same
could.
question is about irrigation or
Exactly.
people who leave for the winter and aren't using their homes at all. I mean,
Exactly, yes.
we need to fair and equitably
Right.
either charge or not charge everyone, right?
Yep, so with commercial sewer, and that's where the school district comes into play. They just wanted to, because commercial sewer rates are built based on water use. And so the thought of your past council was, you know what, we're not gonna overly burden the school district by having that.
Don't they have summer school though? On site? I mean, they're not completely closed in the summer. There are events and stuff at the school district,
So theirs is different than the pool, you have
right?
have to read the language there. The Cascade School Districts, it shall exclude irrigation meters and water use in just June, July, and August. Associated with watering their ball fields. They're still paying for all the water through the irrigation
Right.
that's actually happening. But what we're doing is we're saying, we're not going to tax them on their sewer rate because of the water use that's going on to water the ball fields. And it is the same concept that we were talking about with water. It was public access fields that are being used.
Right, but this is for sewer.
If you guys both, if you want to eliminate all this, we will do that. It is going to exceptionally increase our rates for both the city and for the school district. For the pool itself, that's going to affect the pool fund.
Mhm.
For the school district. You guys know, you pay a lot of taxes in the community for a school district.
Now, I don't know how many of these we have, but we do have some specific agreements that set rates for certain customers, like the KOA, for example, because they don't fall under one of these categories. Now, I don't know the history of when this was implemented, but the KOA actually has their own agreement where we determine their sewer rate based off the pump runtime of the lift station that used to only serve them. And so there are some businesses, because of their unique scenario, that they have their own specific agreement, and specific rate. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but this is sort of the only place that we would have something that pertains to the city, where we'd have essentially a specific agreement for that customer.
Can we have an agreement and not have it in this?
Well, the KO is not in here.
That's what I'm saying. Can we have an agreement with this Cascade School District and have it not be
We can eliminate both the school district and the pool. I'll tell you, it'll save me a lot of time every year on reminding my billing staff to give a credit to the pool because they overbilled it on the wrong one.
So if we have an agreement, it would be easier and more streamlined anyways,
To
right,
have
for
the
billing.
agreement and not even have it in the rate fee structure.
Well, because we don't have the KOA agreement in the rate fee
So
schedule.
it's not like that's
Bicycle
acceptable, that's
Brewery has
acceptable.
an agreement. They have
Yeah,
a
I have
special
lots.
sewer,
They do.
sewer agreement.
Who's that?
Bicycle Brewery.
Bicycle Brewery. Because they're putting a lot of BOD on the system, they pay a whole lot more than this rate and fee schedule.
Right.
So could
calls
we
for.
pull 7 and 8 and have specific agreements for the pool in the school district instead and just not have it in our
So
rate fee
you want
schedule?
us to create a internal agreement for the pool, or should we make that agreement? I mean, the city pays the bill, because the
Right.
interlocal between the PRSA and the city is PRSA collects the property tax, gives it to the city, and then the city actually operates the pool.
That's
Yep.
crunchy.
So we would have a agreement to the city from the city.
Yeah.
We could essentially bring that in a resolution, like a separate resolution, if that would be easier.
Well, we have unique situations dealt with in two different ways, it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Couple are
I was just
being
trying
dealt
to
with
figure out
here,
how
a
to
couple are being
streamline
dealt
it.
with just by a contractor of sorts. Like, why don't we just treat them all the same and just do them all with their own individual rate contracts?
We can,
But like you said, the city, the pool is the
the
city.
pool is the city,
Contract with
so
ourselves.
is it a contract to the city from the city, is what I'm asking.
Is that, I mean, it sounds funny, but is there any
It's just being
precedent for that? Is it?
sarcastic.
Might sound funny, but it's practically works, right? I mean, it works with KOA,
We can.
right? I mean-
Those are the only ones I know off the top of my head, just because they've come up for specific reasons, I don't know. I don't know if we have any other ones.
I think that was it. I think it is just the brewery and KOA.
And why just Icicle? There's other breweries.
Because Icicle Brewery is large enough that they're actually making an impact.
Yeah.
because they have a huge production
Yeah.
facility.
Yeah.
VODs are 10% of the whole city comes out of Icicle.
Yeah, they've analyzed the other small ones and.
Yeah.
uh,
Blue.
Fluid is now, I believe, moving production to Wenatchee,
Yeah, that's right.
and the other one,
Dog
like
House, he
a
does
couple
it.
kegs.
He does it.
It's a 3-barrel system, it's very small.
Right, yeah.
So what you're saying is you'd like us to pull this out, pull out number 7 and 8, and have those just be separate agreements that we do not have in the rate fee structure.
Would that be functional? I mean, can we still get done what we need to get done here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Would you recommend we do that for both the water and sewer, for both of these two? Cause they're both in there on both sides.
well, they're not in the water now, so we cross that out and just
Yeah.
irrigation.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
Unless you're saying you wanted something different for water. Leave water as
No,
left
we
it,
moved on.
only talk about sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Mayor Pro Tem,
yes, Ron?
make a mention.
Yeah, keep it tight, Ron.
The purpose of this fee schedule is to make sure that the city is displaying all of these fees and that it's evenly applying the fees. The more secret agreements we have, especially when the city has its own agreement with itself, which points to the uncomfortableness that the council had on the water, it's problematic for taking this out and then having a secret schedule over here.
Well, we'll bring it as a
Doesn't mean-
resolution.
Yeah, and I don't think we're talking about being.
Yeah, first of all,
It's totally
it's not
Yeah.
secret, not a secret.
Yeah, we'll bring that as a resolution that the council adopts, and the public document.
And it's been, it's on the website.
Yeah, it would be an adopted resolution.
And the Cascade School District, when it says that they're excluding the irrigation water for the calculation of the sewer,
So
the whole
they're,
purpose of an irrigation meter is that there's no sewer ever calculated on, because none of the water goes down the sewer.
Yeah.
Are there irrigation meters that get charged sewer?
so he's talking about,
Well, I think the question is, I believe that there could be some that were crossed.
yes, the school potentially has a meter, so let's think about Osborne. There's a meter there that feeds their building, but also can feed the field.
Right.
But then there's also a separate one for the field too, but then there's landscaping that they may be using off their building too. And that's where that came into play historically. They're still paying the monthly base rate for sewer.
Right.
What we're doing is just saying, okay, they had all this water use during these 3 months that watered the ball fields for public use. And so we took those gallons off of the calculation that figures out what their monthly sewer rate is. Because commercial is built based on the number of gallons of water, because we don't have meters on sewer.
Right.
We just have a meter.
Right.
It's not even a meter, excuse me, it just goes. So it's just a base rate.
Yeah.
So we had to have some sort of methodology for
Right.
commercial accounts, and so with commercial. We read from October 1 through September 30. So we capture an entire year of water use, and then that is calculated to figure out what their actual base rate is for sewer.
Sewer.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I call point of order. I'm just trying to understand, is this a time for questions from the audience and asking and engaging with us? And if so, we should have them go to the mic each time and address us than sitting in the chair, right? Are we taking questions and comments tonight?
Well, there's really only one interaction.
That's
So,
fine. I just.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the point that's very nice.
Yeah, to address us
I will do that.
professionally and yeah.
I will do that.
Okay.
It's just such a big topic, waiting until the end would have made no sense.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd rather have you address us.
thanks, Travis.
Thanks.
Anything else on sewer? Okay,
Just to clarify, do you still want us to pull this out and do separate resolution?
Yes.
Yes,
Resolution.
yes, please.
and that way,
We can do that.
stormwater. I'm actually realizing there was one change I meant to make in stormwater, so I'll verbally explain it to you. The way stormwater is applied is that it's for any development, not just someone connecting to our stormwater system. It's very confusing and gray how it's been implemented historically. So right now we have this inspection charge of $550. That instead should be a connection charge,
Not an inspection.
not an inspection, and the inspection should be the same. As the water inspection, which I believe is $130. Yeah, so it would be a connection charge. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, my brain is half here. Yeah, a connection charge of $550 and an inspection charge, which would be like a 2B, like a new line item that we'd be adding. That's in
Inspecting
What am I thinking?
an existing one.
You got this, Andy. You got this.
Not.
You got this. I believe in you.
It's $130 inspection charge after it's been installed.
No, there's no 2B. I'm so sorry. My brain is not working. The inspection charge just needs to be $130.
Not 550.
Not $550 for the connection?
So do you want a connection charge and an inspection charge?
Yes, because,
That's.
no, what am I thinking?
That's what the.
Sorry,
I think the system development.
I'm losing my mind all of a sudden.
Trying to look at it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's. Provided was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, it
installation.
just made sense until I just got blurry eyed and now I don't remember that I was thinking.
You talking? Sean? So what's?
Yeah.
Installation, labor, equipment and.
Inspection charge plus a $150.
Something about.
No, inspection charge is $150.
I was modeling out.
Add 150 instead of 550 and then
Okay,
a hookup charge of 550. Two. Let's see what
okay,
she's-
I'm
let's see
sorry,
what she comes
scratch
up with.
everything I just said, I feel like I'm losing my mind tonight. The system development charge will be applied to all development. Whether or not you connect onto the system. If you connect onto the system, instead of the $550, we will change that inspection charge to just be $130. That's your physical connection into the system. And we
So
just.
somebody has, say, big dry well on site, they can mitigate their surface runoff on site, they still can pay sewer.
The stormwater, yeah.
Stormwater.
I'm sorry, that,
So the
I
system
didn't
development
do
charge is the connection fee.
So could you review that? We had two
I
different,
was just confused myself.
we got two different charges there, right?
It's two different things.
We got a $500.
And we called it street patching, and that was, I just changed to inspection.
It's just not down here.
Yeah.
Cause they still have to pay the right of way, they still have to do all the work, yeah.
That's it right there. She's reducing the rate. So the old language was street patching and inspection
Right,
for 525.14.
But we don't do.
We don't do the street patching,
right,
so she's just having an inspection charge at how much?
$130,
$130, it'll be same as that water.
but that's considered a connection fee too, right?
It's just the inspection charge for a connection,
For a connection.
for a connection.
The system development charge is right above that,
That's
the
okay.
1,034.
That's the connection.
That's the connection.
all right.
charge.
Well, no.
What?
It doesn't matter whether or not you physically connect, you pay the system development charge
Okay.
Oh,
What's,
for new
what's the
connections.
logic for that?
for new development.
For new development, because not everyone connects.
Like, for example, in my neighborhood, because it's easy to use, my yard generates runoff. But I'm not physically tied into the stormwater system at all, but the runoff of my property still goes into the road, flows into the stormwater system. That's why we have the system development charge that doesn't require a physical connection, because you are still impacting that system.
so you get charged the 1,000?
One-time charge
With a new
for
house,
new
yeah.
development.
Right.
Like you build a house up out in the UGA up Ski Hill.
But this wouldn't apply to the UGA,
This is in the city.
because we don't have a stormwater
okay.
system.
Yeah. So we don't have stormwater everywhere,
Right.
Right, yeah.
but in order for us to start building up a stormwater fund, and remember, the stormwater fund's only about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
In order for us to build it, we have to have the system development charge to build rates over time as growth occurs. Whether there's a storm line right in front of that house or not, they're gonna pay this fee for us to help build our entire system. Down the line, at some point, the city is going to continue as they tear up streets and put in new water lines and new sewer lines. We could put in new stormwater lines. It could be there
Right.
for those residents that are already there as well. It's kind of a weird thing because stormwater didn't
Mhm.
exist from a fee schedule perspective. The lines have been there for a long, long time. There never was anything in a stormwater fund. And stormwater previously was managed and funded by the city through the street fund. Because that's kind of typical, if you don't have a stormwater utility fund, you just run it to your street fund. And there is no fee within the street fund to collect from new businesses, new homes to support your system.
I'm sorry, I think I just made this utterly confusing by just having my brain glitch out.
Nope, you're done.
Does that make sense where we're at now?
Yes.
Okay,
So what it does make sense is that you have a new development, it's not hooked up for stormwater, but you contribute to the overall stormwater below you, so you're gonna pay 1,034
Mhm.
for every new development. That's the service
Per
system
4,000
development.
Square feet of impervious.
yeah. So then, are you all good if we move to the resident? Okay.
Yeah.
So residential, $6.28. We all pay that right now. All residential customers pay that.
Don't we pay $55?
I think we pay $4 right now, or I don't have. the whole-
616.
$6.16, yeah.
Pay that much?
Yeah, we pay
That
616.
started out
Going
at
up to
50 cents.
620.
It's going up, yeah.
So did a loaf of Wonder Bread.
Yeah. What a gas, Karen.
Our rates are still current, and Kevin, if he's still here, he can attest to this one, our rates are very low. for
Right,
stormwater.
right, yeah,
Because we're still in the infancy of building it.
right.
So then multifamily, $6.28 per dwelling unit. And then commercial, we have different rates, and it's the low, medium, and high are dictated by this section in our code that's referenced here, but that determines how. It spells out how you determine which category a commercial business is in.
Mhm.
And so the storm, it's the same for everybody, huh?
Yeah, it's the same for the low impact on commercial, medium and high. Otherwise, it's.
And there was that multifamily 3 units again.
Multifamily is probably exactly what you're wanting to see. One unit in multifamily pays the same as a big single family home.
Yeah,
1 unit.
one
Yeah,
unit.
one
unit.
How come it says 3 units or more?
Cause that's how you qualify for multifamily.
Has to have,
You have to have
Versus a
3
duplex is residential.
So for 3 units or more, it's $6.28
Per
Per
unit,
month.
per unit.
I mean, per month.
Yep.
And for a residential person, they don't have 3 units,
Nope.
it's $6.28.
Yep, because the multifamily is per dwelling unit. So it's a 1 for 1, like,
Oh, so it's 3 times $6.28.
Correct.
How come it just says $3.28?
It says per
per
dwelling unit.
dwelling unit.
Per
So
dwelling
if
unit.
it's- so
Oh,
if it's a
okay, okay.
triplex, then they pay times 3.
So a multifamily 3 units is not a dwelling unit, it's 3 dwelling units.
It's 3 dwelling.
Okay.
units. Yes.
I can deal with that.
it's like the dream scenario. Any questions or concerns on stormwater? What about garbage? I wasn't planning to walk us through this one unless you want me to. Are there any specific questions or concerns on solid waste?
Nice to see a nod for Bear
Yeah.
containers.
Yeah.
We'll be coming back to you with more for that, but the idea there is that anyone who has a 300 gallon that we replace with Bear containers doesn't get charged anymore.
Right.
Since we don't have 300 gallon Bear containers.
Unless they lose or damage those containers.
Yeah.
That was kind of pricey, I noticed that.
They're very expensive.
Yeah.
Is the big things like downtown, are those 64 gallon?
No, those are the 300 gallon.
Yeah, the big ones are 300 gallons.
Oh, okay,
The big round ones?
yeah,
Yeah, big rounds are 300 gallons.
okay, there I see
And then
it.
the big bellies that we put in, those are 150.
That's it.
Huh?
50.
Oh, they compact. and they get-
Yeah, they come,
Sorry,
yeah.
they compact to get.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last item I put in here, which is not really utilities, but I do want to point out, and I know this is something that we talked about a while ago. Line item 1 is new in here. This is a right of way permit. This is only for maintenance of existing sidewalk. And that's a $35 fee versus being a full $100 fee. Or sorry.
Where's
$105.
this? I'm not.
This is on the page 30, well, in the red line version, I don't know what version.
We're past the garbage phase.
33.
Yeah.
Page 33.
Okay,
He's on paper. I should have done that. No, oh, okay. Good question. That's what they were making out. That was the only substantial change that I did want to point out here, just because in our code, the adjacent property owner is required to maintain the sidewalk in front of their property. And I know that that's been some concern for people that they technically would have to get a $300 permit in order to maintain the sidewalk that they're required to maintain. So we've reduced the cost for that.
where's that? Where are we? Over here?
Someone from the audience brought that up, didn't they? Ron brought that up a few months ago.
Oh.
Right away permit.
Where? I'm lost.
Oh.
Where did you
Yeah.
jump from someplace
Okay.
to someplace?
Are there
We are
any other
on this
concerns
page.
on the rates before we look at system development charge?
Not for me.
All right, the next one. So the system development chart, what I tried to do on this page was show what the existing rates are in 2024, what the max allowable is that Kevin calculated as part of the utility rate study per state law. And then I just gave some different percentage options here for what we can look at. And I do have this as a spreadsheet, so if there's any, I'm using percentage because it makes it a little bit more streamlined, just as a starting place for the conversation. But really, when we're looking at this, when you go to pick what you want the system development charge for water to be, you would pick an entire column. You would really, all we're having you set is what 1 ERU, the rate for 1 ERU is, and everything else gets calculated from there.
Okay,
The purpose of this though was to show for development. So you could see how it would impact a single family home with a 3/4 inch meter, but how it would also impact large development that has a 6 or 8 inch. I think I only put it as far as 6, but like a 6-inch meter, how much they would be paying when they connect to the system. So really, in setting the system development charge, you're not dictating what our budget is. Because this isn't factored into our budget right now, because we can't rely on development coming in.
Right.
In order to make our costs. But this is obviously money that can go towards your projects.
Right.
And I guess it really is a lever. It's two things. One, it's actually having people buy into our system for the impact that they have in our system. It's also a lever on development. But because it's just one rate and it's calculated out for the ERU. Like, if you're trying to push harder on larger development, it also will still proportionally impact a single family home.
Right.
So really, I meant to look back and see when these were last increased. I wanna say it was at least like 10 years ago.
It's been a long time. We intended to do it with the last 6-year rate study, and it never got addressed.
Which was like 2016, so it.
2018.
This is the connection fee.
This is
the initial connection fee with development, right?
Yes, so in your packet, you have the spreadsheet that I put together with just options, and then the very last page is a system development chart graph. And really the point of this was from Kevin's presentation, is just to kind of help understand what other municipalities in our area have for their system development charges. So this is where we currently are, $6,500. The max allowable that we have is 18,000. And for reference, like, obviously, these are across the spectrum. As far as being a tourist town that's on the smaller side, but does have to have infrastructure for a big city. We really are quite similar to city of Chelan, and as you can see, we are substantially lower.
Yeah, than their SU.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Andy, if we look at this, one thing I was leaning on earlier is the data, right?
Yeah.
So the data I see here is we're comparing to our neighbors and we're comparing to what state law allows us to charge. What's the data? Do we have data on what does it cost to develop the system?
Yeah. Kevin, can I turn to you on this one?
Well, the premise behind the system development charge is basically there's the two components. Andy kind of referenced those a little bit earlier, but there's the buy-in component and then there's the future development component. So the buy-in component is the total value of your system divided by the number of ERUs that it can serve. So that's one part. And then the other part is looking into the future saying, what are the capital projects that we are going to do in the future that are expansion related, meaning that we can handle more ERUs? And then we divide it by the number of ERUs that we expand by. So it is kind of a data-driven exercise where it's all based on the value of the capacity in the past or in the at present time, I should say, versus in the future.
Okay, so what is that number? What would be your proposed number? Because right now we have an existing 2024 rate and we've got percentages up to state law max. What's the number that you think we should be at to support future development capacity, however you want to call it?
Well, that's kind of the tough one, and you know, I might defer to the idea that it's a policy idea, but if you wanted to have growth pay for growth, which is the mantra that is usually touted with system development charges, then you would charge the maximum allowable. That holds your current customers, you know, harmless relatively, if you charge the maximum allowable. So in theory, if you charged 50% of the maximum allowable, the other 50% of the costs are going to fall back onto your current ratepayers.
Well, the maximum allowable is a state law number. This is the cost. That's what I'm trying to get at.
The maximum.
In theory, we're basically charging as much as we can get out of them, and it's not based on what the cost is to us to expand our system.
Well, and it is because, go ahead, Kevin.
It is, the maximum allowable is a calculation that we do that's, based on state law. But it's based on, the existing system capacity and also the future existing capacity. So it is based on the cost to expand your system and also the available ERUs in your system right now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. It wasn't clear to me.
Yeah, sorry. And so, I mean, obviously Kevin has way more data than this, but the piece that him and I worked on together is we went through the project list and I identified what was being driven by capacity. And then what percentage of that was driven by capacity versus just replacing infrastructure for like each project line item. And then that factors into how we structure. So it is based off of our necessary improvements for capacity.
So what would your recommendation be? Honestly.
I'm not gonna make a recommendation. Just to give you a little insight into what I've heard over the years. So development should pay for development. That is definitely something that has been said in the past many, many times by council members. However, pre-2017, if you were to look at the numbers of growth in the community, Maggie would be here to tell you that we had 3 houses built in a decade of time. We had 2 businesses built in a decade of time. Today, everyone is building lots and lots and lots, right? And we could have been reaping a lot of money had we had them. Now, if you go too high, are you, in a way, manipulating the market? Are you discouraging growth? Or are you encouraging growth with your rate? And so in the past, what I heard was we need growth because we have this system that we have and we don't have enough users to take care of it. So they wanted growth to happen, both in residential and commercial, therefore they kept the rates low. So as you raise those rates, you may actually have some effect on how much more development actually occurs. It could slow down, it could just keep going.
Right.
And I guess as you're looking at this, I don't even have the 8-inch on here, but like, I know Leavenworth Meadows was a big discussion. If you're looking, they were an 8-inch meter, but even if you're looking at the 6-inch meter, right now our existing rates are $162,000 for them. Versus the max allowable is $557,000. Like.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It is huge, and it also is quite large on the single family side where. You'd be looking at almost $4,000 up to $13,000. I'm not prepared to give you a recommendation. I mean, I purposely put the numbers in I did because I thought that could be a good reference point. And we also can put language in here that the council would recommend increasing by like if you wanted to do 10% over the next few years, we can put that language in here. And then we'll reevaluate in 2025, plan to implement that. So that as developers are looking at this, they know, but.
How many residential permits do we issue this year? How many last year? How many in the past 3 years, 5 years? Is it 3 or is it 100?
Maggie's not here.
Well, I mean, it drives kind of, are we developer friendly? I mean, we're developer friendly now, and
Yeah.
does that even matter? Because we're not really developing a whole lot anyways at a low rate, so.
Well, we
Just
want to
it's a driver.
encourage infill. We want to encourage more residential units being built, which is why we've been doing so many different code changes to incentivize that type of development.
Yeah.
And my only fear is if we crank this too high, it will disincentivize
100%.
people to build because they won't want to pay a really high connection fee.
I agree.
And also just to preface that, I know that Maggie has mentioned that, under one of the House bills, whichever one is driving the ADU, I don't speak the
Yeah.
community development language, but we have to have a reduced impact fee, which would include a system development charge for ADUs. So if an ADU over 900 square feet in the future, we'll have to have a reduced system development charge anyway. Just in order to incentivize infill. So it would really be applicable for like this year, but. Anyway,
And if they're
I don't
building
know.
those under the 1,200 or 900 square feet, right?
They don't
And
have that. Yeah,
they-
if they're under 900 square feet, they wouldn't pay this anyway.
Yeah.
It just would incentivize the larger student.
So right now, if you build an ADU 900 square feet or bigger or larger, you're paying the
Pay this.
3,000.
You pay this.
Yeah, the $3,900.
Yeah,
I'd be more inclined to see like a 20% raise over the next 5 years.
Yeah, as a occasional small time developer.
Right.
I can tell you,
Right.
this would crush my ability to do anything and, you know, what it would eliminate or reduce the amount of people like me who are just scrapping to make a
Right.
project happen, you know, and I like to think that people like me build the projects that we need in these towns. I'm not, you know, big money coming in and just being able to absorb these fees because I'm well funded. It's the people who are doing the projects that help our community. I think a lot of them would be really impacted by this.
yeah.
By all of these options?
Well, of course, I mean, anything makes a difference, but I
Right.
mean, at the same time, I've been spouting off about we should pay what it costs.
Mhm.
And so that,
Right.
but we
I
were.
mean, we are really
hesitant-
low.
Yeah, when we hesitated, we were talking about the utility rates and we're going up, you know, 10% or 12%. You know, and developers aren't all faceless, you know, evil people. And they are people who are trying to build projects that generally help the community. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're looking at
50%.
way more than 50%. And we're looking like at triple, you know.
I
More.
just did some math just to figure out, 'cause I asked Andy, I said, what is the percentage on the gray column, the existing rates? For water, it's 29.1%
Percent of the max.
of the max,
Right.
correct? For sewer, it's 50,
Mhm.
and for stormwater, it's 69.5. So they're not equal, that's for sure.
And they don't have to be equal, you can pick whatever column you want for any one of these.
Yep.
But then, that's a good point too, which I guess I didn't even mention.
Right,
For
right.
that single family home, they're paying the first line of all three of these.
Right.
And I guess what I was trying to know is if you choose, let's say 50% on water, 60% on sewer, and 70% on stormwater, you're only talking about a couple dollars on the stormwater. But what you're really losing out on, in my opinion, with that percentage is that water.
Mhm. Right.
Water is significantly low at only 29%.
So are we trying to determine if we're gonna go with
Yes.
the 3,890 as a starting?
Well, that is our
That's-
current
that's
rate.
the current.
That's the
Yeah,
current rate
yeah, that's
today.
current.
Current
That's
rate today.
correct. Now, if you wanted to ask me of my opinion on that, I would share that. I personally, and you don't have to do this, like, it's just my own recommendation, I personally would not recommend staying at the 2024 rates
Right.
For
Right.
water.
Yeah. Yeah, for any of them, right?
for any of them.
Yeah, for any of them. No. That's why we're here.
If we looked at it, you know, from the standpoint of 50%.
For all of them or?
Well, I'm looking at the first, just to say water.
Okay.
Or let's just say we did 50%. If you go down to that graph and you
Mhm.
compare it to our neighbors. And we wanna, it's still a huge jump. It's doubling. Roughly, you know, let's say it ended up being, instead of $6,519, it ends up being $13,038. That's a huge jump and it clearly needs to go up substantially to be able to meet the needs that we have. But that's a huge jump and we could adjust that going forward too on a steady basis, but at least it takes a big chunk out of it. I don't know, I think that's a starting point that I would consider.
So Mike, your recommendation would be to jump to the whole,
Just double
double
it,
it.
yeah. And that still brings us well short of,
Right. what other, yeah,
We'll show the weather.
yeah.
Are you saying doubling the water? Right.
Take the first column at least in the water, and then I don't know, we could do the first column all the way down and. with
So
the
go like
intention-
50, 60, 70, the way that it's proposed on here as an option.
It's a good starting point. It still stings, I think, it's gonna sting for people.
I don't think I'm
Versus,
following you guys. You're talking this
take,
one,
no, this one,
this one,
take the
Oh.
recommendation.
Okay.
Increase,
550.
yeah, increase water by 50, increase
Sanitary sewer.
sewer by 60, and stormwater by 70.
Oh, okay.
So I just ran a little scenario to see what it would look like from a total bill perspective.
These are for developers.
50%
For anything new, new houses.
Keeping in mind stormwater, we might keep right where it's at, because stormwater's already above 50%.
Right.
The current total bill connection fee right now today would cost $7,552 for a 3/4 family residential. If we went to 50%, almost across the board, it's $10,305. So about
So it's not
just
double.
under $3,000 total increase to the
Right.
builder,
If everything's at 50%?
with the exception of
Except for-
stormwater being somewhat higher than 50%.
By like $30, I think.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree that the goal is to get to where development pays for the
Right,
cost of
yes,
the
yeah,
system?
I would agree to
And
that.
future system, that's the grid, that's the nuance, right? It's the future infrastructure.
What did you say that the sewer existing hookup percentage was?
It's sewer's actually 50% right now, so sewer would not change.
Okay.
Water would go up 20%.
Mhm.
And Andy said, please don't lower stormwater.
Right, yeah.
So leave stormwater and sewer the same and increase water to 50%?
Mhm.
If that's what you wanna see is.
That would get us
across the
to
board
about
50.
$10,000 total, right, for,
Yeah.
for the connection fee?
That's the most.
For a single family residential.
I don't want to go there.
I can support that.
I would support that.
That's the minimum.
And then.
With the expectation that we are gonna go higher. We're gonna
Could we
keep.
Overtime.
graduate the
Yeah.
increases
Yeah.
later?
Like you said,
Over time, we'll keep going up.
Would you wanna put that language in now about having an increase year over year?
we're gonna look at this all again next, in 2025, right? We're just getting through 2025 at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or to move best to,
if that's something that you feel strongly on that you wanna put in now, and really the benefit there would just be that as developers look at they are able to see that rates would be growing up.
Yeah.
If that's a determination you've already made that
that's a
you
good one.
want to do in
We're
the
gonna do it
future,
now
we
or
could
in 2
put
years.
that
Like,
language in.
So what would the language be? Cause it would be a percentage every year?
Well, because the
Yeah.
state max is gonna change every year too,
Right,
right?
well, I think we could just say that it would be a 10% increase on this, because that maximum is based off the calculation that Kevin just did in utility rate study. With the projects that he incorporated into that,
10% of the total bill or 10% of each?
it would be, they
System
have to be for
developer charge.
each. Cause it's structured for each.
I think that's fair.
And Kevin takes into account when he developed these numbers, he's looking at the water system plan, the sewer system plan. If he's looking for
Future.
what is max build out for your plans? And we do those plans, water is every 6 years? Is that the?
It's now
where
to
it's at?
10. Not to 10, but yeah, it has been 6.
So how would the language would be that the SDC would increase 10% of the max allowable?
Well, we're not
That's all.
recommending what the percent should be at
Oh,
this point. For future,
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's asking
We
for
are.
the language in about how we're gonna increase that.
Yeah.
we will be adding this language of a percent.
I didn't envision us putting a percent in.
I would think so.
I would envision us putting language though that says we will be increasing.
Okay, all
That,
right.
that way developers have an expectation,
Yeah,
but
okay.
they don't know what the expectation is.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to get that
I
specific.
support that. I don't think we have time tonight to get down into the nitty gritty on how we want to incrementally increase over the years.
But if we just have the language that says that, and then we define what that looks like, once we're into 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns on this whole packet?
Just the only thing is, so we come up with the SDC for the start, is it 6,000 or the?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we need to determine specifically what we want that to be. So for water, for
This comment.
So it's all calculated based off these year use, so we will say that it is $6,685 for water for a 3/4 inch.
Yeah.
No change.
No changes, okay, so no change in sewer and no change in water.
Okay. It's gonna,
I thought you said you didn't recommend no changes.
Oh, Chantel was saying to decrease to 50, or like if it was 50 across the board.
Yeah.
And it's currently at 69.5.
Okay.
I just was asking if these not drop.
Okay, yeah, I see.
Nothing goes down.
Alright. Gotcha.
Okay. Have we covered everything you had to present us tonight?
Did we miss anything? So future councils won't say, wow, 5 years ago, they didn't
They had a
even
chance.
address this. Have we addressed everything for the foreseeable future?
25.
There we
no,
go.
we haven't, but.
The question is, do you guys feel comfortable to
That's
vote on
pretty
it?
good, isn't it? Don't you think,
Yeah.
Zeke?
I don't think this is one of those things
Yeah.
anybody's comfortable with. I think this hurts so many people, but I think it's
It's gonna hurt.
I'm ready to vote.
Yeah.
Personally.
Council, how do we feel? Anything additional to discuss?
Don't think so.
Livermore City Council moves to approve resolution 22-2024-2025 rate and fee schedule as presented with utility rate changes incorporated as discussed.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Zeke. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you, I know this has not been easy, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you for
Can I be set?
responding to the
Essential thing.
our requests last meeting. Thank you. That was really helpful.
I'm gonna go home
Really,
and barricade
really
my
great
house.
packet. Thank you. I
No,
know
I
it's
think-
a lot of.
It's worth it, thank you, this really is a big deal, it's a really big deal for us.
Either zero skate.
Yeah. Council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Zeke. All those in favor? We're adjourned.
Nice job, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, Chantal.
Yeah, it's good.